Chapter 1436. Yi Xian glanced at the white-robed woman. Obviously, she didn't want to talk about the Qing. What exactly happened during her generation? Why did only 2 out of the 4 Qing remain in the end? Yi Xian was quite curious. However, he didn't ask any further. Suddenly, the 3 of them stopped moving because an old man had suddenly appeared not too far away from them. The white-robed woman gazed at the old man with a calm expression and indifference in her eyes. The old man's gaze descended onto Yi Xian. "You're Yi Xian?" Yi Xian nodded. The old man glanced at the white-robed woman and Sita Tingyun, and then he smiled. "What? You've only brought 2 people with you?" Yi Xian nodded. The old man laughed with ridicule. "Yi Xian, who are you looking down on?" Yi Xian was speechless. The old man sized up the white-robed woman and Sita Tingyun again, and then he smiled. "Yi Xian, don't you think you've brought too few people with you?" Yi Xian thought for a while. Then he said, "Yes, it is a little too little." The old man was about to speak when Sita Tingyun suddenly said, "All of you seem to have been waiting for us?" The old man gazed at Sita Tingyun. "We've been waiting for a long time." Sita Tingyun blinked. Then lead the way." The old man glanced at Yi Xian's group of 3. "Come on then. We've prepared a huge gift for all of you. I hope you like it." He turned around and left once he finished speaking. Sita Tingyun hesitated for a moment. "I'm a little panicked." Yi Xian was speechless. The white-robed woman glanced at Sita Tingyun. "You've learned quite a bit from him." As soon as she finished speaking, she led Yi Xian off into the distance. Sita Tingyun chuckled, and then she followed after them. Whirling world. At this moment, a few thousand people had gathered at the teleportation formation. There were a total of 98 consolidation realm experts amongst them. Moreover, there were over 500 Dao attainment realm experts. Among them, there were thousands of Dao defense realm experts. The Xuanhuan sect and the other 3 superforces had used all the resources they could. This time they were serious. And they didn't dare to underestimate him. The fall of dozens of consolidation realm experts made them realize that they were definitely not facing an ordinary force. At that moment, an old man walked out from the teleportation formation. Not far away, Li Shanshui, the sect master of the mystic fraudulent sect, opened his eyes and looked at the elder. The elder said solemnly, "They're here." Li Shanshui narrowed his eyes. "How many?" The old man said. "Including Yi Xian, that makes 3. 3 people." Everyone was stunned when they heard this. Li Shanshui frowned. "Are you sure there are only 3 of them?" The old man nodded. "Just 3. However, the aura of those 2 women is very calm. I'm afraid they're not ordinary people." 3 people. Li Shanshui looked at the entrance of the teleportation array with a hint of doubt in his eyes. Yi Xian only brought 2 women to the Saha world? Was he confident, or did he have a backup plan? The Xiao clan's patriarch, Xiao Jing, spoke abruptly. "It isn't that simple." The Dao Convergence Dean Yin Min nodded. "Yes, we can't be careless." Li Shanshui gazed at the teleportation formation. "Then let's see how extraordinary they are." As he spoke, he closed his eyes slowly. Actually, there was a trace of uneasiness in his heart. It was absolutely impossible for Yi Xian to have no backup plan. Or perhaps, it could be said that those 2 women were absolutely not ordinary people. But at this moment, they had no way out. They couldn't beg for mercy from Yi Xian, right? He couldn't do something like that. 2 women gazed silently at Li Shanshui's group from high up in the clouds. They were Yuzun and Yuxi. Yuxi smiled. "Junior sister, looks like Li Shanshui and the others are prepared to fight to the death." Yuzun spoke softly. "Let's just watch in silence." Yuxi gazed at Yuzun. "Do you know that if Yi Xian loses, then all of these powers will turn against my Saha sect?" Yuzun fell silent. If Yi Xian lost, then Li Shanshui would definitely utilize this opportunity to annihilate the Saha sect. Yuxi was just about to speak when the teleportation formation in the distance suddenly started trembling. Both of them gazed at the teleportation formation. The gazes of everyone here descended onto the teleportation formation, and it didn't take long for 3 people to walk out from it. 2 women and a man. It was Yi Xian's group of 3. When Yi Xian walked out from the teleportation formation, He was instantly stunned. Isn't there a little too many people here? Moreover, there are actually so many experts here. The Xiao clan's patriarch suddenly walked over to Yi Xian's group of 3, and he gazed at Yi Xian. You're Yi Xian? Yi Xian nodded. Xiao Jing smiled. Young Master Yi, we underestimated you. I never expected that such an enormous power would actually stand behind you. As he spoke, he glanced at the white-robed woman and Situ Tingyan. However, aren't you looking down on the experts of my Saha world a little too much by only bringing 2 people with you? Meanwhile, the white-robed woman suddenly shook her head. You talk too much. As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly vanished on the spot. Xiao Jing's pupils constricted, and then he suddenly smashed his fist forward. Bang! The spectators hadn't even been able to see it clearly when a figure was blasted flying. It was Li Shanshui. Li Shanshui frantically retreated. In the process of retreating, his physical body cracked inch by inch and his soul gradually dissipated. When he finally stopped, his physical body had already disappeared and his soul was almost transparent. Everyone in the surroundings was petrified when they witnessed this scene. The patriarch of the Xiao clan is gone just like that? At this moment, Li Shanshui's countenance was pale while his eyes were filled with disbelief. He hadn't imagined that the patriarch of the Xiao clan would be instantly annihilated with a single punch. At this moment, all the experts of the Saha sect were terrified. This wasn't victory, it was instant annihilation. He'd instantly annihilated a peak Unity Realm expert with a single punch. On the other side, Yushi's expression instantly became solemn as well. At this moment, she finally understood why her junior sister was so afraid of the 5th dimension. This woman was too strong. The white-robed woman gazed at Li Shanshui from afar. Li Shanshui's expression changed, and he said ferociously, "Everyone, attack together." As soon as he finished speaking, the experts of the Black Illusion sect charged forward. The experts of the other sects were about to attack as well. Right at this moment, the white-robed woman smashed her fist forward. Bang! All the experts of the Black Illusion sect that were charging towards her were instantly annihilated by a single punch. Over 100 Dao Attainment Realm experts and over a dozen Unity Realm experts had been instantly annihilated with a single punch. At this moment, the surroundings were so silent that a falling needle could be heard. So many experts had been instantly annihilated just like that. Everyone looked at the white-robed woman, as if they were looking at a monster. On the other side, Yushi's expression was extremely solemn as well. She stared fixedly at the white-robed woman, and the shock in her heart couldn't be any greater. What sort of godly strength is this? In the distance, the white-robed woman gazed at Li Shanshui. Li Shanshui gulped and spoke with a trembling voice. "Senior, this is a misunderstanding." Everyone was speechless. The white-robed woman was expressionless. What misunderstanding? Li Shanshui's lips moved, but he didn't know what to say. At this moment, the Dao Returning Academy's dean, Yun Min, suddenly walked in front of the white-robed woman and bowed respectfully. "Senior, we are here today to welcome young Master Yi and you." Everyone was speechless. Yun Min bowed again and said, "Senior, if we have offended you before, please." The white-robed woman suddenly opened her palm, and the Dao scripture on Yi Xian's body flew into her hand. She looked at Li Shanshui and the others. "This is the Dao scripture that my brother obtained. Don't you want his Dao scripture? It's here now. Come and get it." Yun Min said with a trembling voice. "No, I wouldn't dare." The white-robed woman's mouth curled into a disdainful smile. "Wouldn't dare? You force my brother to almost self-destruct. Still wouldn't dare?" As soon as she finished speaking, she blasted out a punch. Bang! Yun Min's entire body was annihilated by this punch. He didn't even have a chance to fight back. The expressions of everyone here changed drastically when they witnessed this scene, and they immediately fled. Meanwhile, the white-robed woman suddenly spoke fiercely. "Did I say that all of you could leave?" As she spoke, she smashed her fist forward, and an expert that was over 1 kilometer away was instantly obliterated by this punch. Everyone had stopped what they were doing. They didn't dare to move. The white-robed woman glanced coldly at them. "Do you want to live?" Everyone was stunned. And then they hurriedly nodded. The white-robed woman gazed at Li Shanshui. What about you? Li Shanshui spoke with a trembling voice. I do. Don't beg for mercy? No. It isn't shameful to beg for mercy when facing such an expert. The white-robed woman's face was expressionless. She glanced at Yi Xian and said, This is my brother. Everyone looked at Yi Xian. The white-robed woman continued, He's from the 9th dimension. He's the master of the 9th dimension, and he's reincarnated here to play. Yi Xian was speechless. Everyone glanced at each other. The 9th dimension? Does the 9th dimension really exist? The white-robed woman continued, If you want to live, it's very simple. Follow my brother. In the future, he'll take you to the 9th dimension to play. Yi Xian was speechless. Everyone was speechless. Li Shanshui's expression was somewhat strange. Why does it seem like this senior is tricking us? The white-robed woman frowned slightly. What, you don't believe me? Hearing this, Li Shanshui hurriedly said, I believe, of course I believe. Everyone else nodded hurriedly. The white-robed woman's face was expressionless. Is it a grievance to follow my brother? Li Shanshui hurriedly shook his head. No. It's not grievance. It's our honor to follow young Master Yi. The white-robed woman was silent, and no one knew what she was thinking. Afraid that the white-robed woman would go back on her words, Li Shanshui hurriedly came before Yi Xian, and bowed respectfully to Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, from now on, we are your people. Yi Xian ignored Li Shanshui. He walked to the white-robed woman's side and said softly, Qing. The white-robed woman slowly closed her eyes. Brother, I'm leaving. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Leaving? The white-robed woman nodded. She opened her palm, and a blood-red thread suddenly appeared on her hand. Yi Xian was stunned. This is... The white-robed woman looked at Yi Xian. The cause of calamity. Yi Xian said solemnly. What do you mean? The white-robed woman raised her head and looked into the depths of the starry sky. There was a trace of confusion in her eyes. I underestimated this cause of calamity. Yi Xian was silent. At this moment, he thought of Nian Nian. Was Nian Nian's death really related to the Dao ancestor? With Nian Nian's strength, even if it was less than 20%, it should be enough to kill the Dao ancestor. Moreover, Nian Nian lost her memory. This was very unusual. At this moment, a powerful aura suddenly appeared in the distant sky. Everyone in the surroundings looked up into the sky. Li Shanshui gazed at Gu Wuchao with slight astonishment. What are you doing? Gu Wuchao laughed fiercely. She wants us to follow Yi Xian? She's probably overthinking things. As he spoke, he bowed deeply towards the sky. Greetings, ancestor. As soon as he finished speaking, a figure gradually condensed in the sky, and it wasn't long before a white-haired old man appeared within their fields of vision. The profound sex ancestor. The white-haired old man glanced at the surroundings, and then he gazed at Gu Wuchao in the end. Has my profound sect encountered a threat of life and death? Gu Wuchao nodded and spoke respectfully, yes. As he spoke, he pointed at the white-robed woman in the distance. Ancestor, it's her who intends to destroy my profound sect. The white-haired old man gazed at the white-robed woman. The white-robed woman's expression was calm. The white-robed old man seemed to have noticed something, and his pupils constricted. He turned around to look at Gu Wuchao and roared furiously. You idiot! How could you screw over your ancestors like this? I'll fuck your ancestors. Everyone in the surroundings was speechless. P.S. Do you have tickets? Chapter 1437. Gu Wuchao was quite stunned. What's going on? The white-haired old man cupped his fists to the white-robed woman and said respectfully, May I know your name, senior? Senior? Everyone here was petrified when they heard the white-haired old man. The ancestor of the Dark Secrets sect actually addressed the white-robed woman as senior? At this moment, Li Shanshui was covered in cold sweat, because he'd actually wanted to summon his ancestor as well. That was the final trump card of the Dark Secrets sect. However, he'd hesitated because he wasn't sure if his ancestor could resist the white-robed woman. But he hadn't expected that Gu Wuchao would summon his ancestor. Fortunately, Gu Wuchao had summoned his ancestor. Otherwise, he would be finished. The white-robed woman gazed at the white-haired old man. Are you not going to lend a hand? The white-haired old man hurriedly shook his head. Of course not. Of course not. The white-robed woman's face was emotionless as she gazed at Gu Wuchao. The latter's expression changed, and he hurriedly bowed respectfully. We're willing to follow young Master Yi to the death. The white-robed woman paid no attention to Gu Wuchao, and she gazed at Yi Xian. Come with me. Yi Xian nodded. All right. The white-robed woman turned around and left. Yi Xian followed her. Situ Tingyan glanced at the others here, and they were looking at her as well. Situ Tingyan blinked. Does anyone want to spar with me? All of them were speechless. At the other side, Yi Xian and the white-robed woman were strolling through the clouds. The white-robed woman said, I have to go. Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. Qing, or do you know much about the cause of calamity? The white-robed woman shook her head. Not much. She paused for a moment and continued. I've been constantly investigating the cause of calamity throughout the years, and I've made some progress. I'll get to the bottom of it once I leave. Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. Why can't I sense the cause of calamity within me? The white-robed woman gazed at Yi Xian. Because you're not strong enough. Yi Xian was speechless. The white-robed woman said softly. The cause of the calamity is mainly this cause. Everything in the world has a cause and an effect. We don't know how this cause was formed. As she spoke, she looked up at the starry sky and said softly, people living in this world are like chess pieces on a chessboard. Of course, the chess player might also be a chess piece. Fate is like an invisible hand that controls everything in the world. Yi Xian smiled bitterly. Am I that chess piece? The white-robed woman looked at Yi Xian. She grabbed Yi Xian's hand and said softly, this universe is boundless and there are too many unknowns. Look at this starry sky. There are countless galaxies and planets. These galaxies and planets are all moving confidently according to some kind of law. How could all of this be a coincidence? If it wasn't a coincidence, then who created all of this? Both you and I could be pawns. Even the three of them didn't dare to say that they were invincible in the universe. Yi Xian fell silent. The white-robed woman continued. I'm going to leave this place and investigate the cause of your calamity. You have to take care of yourself from now on, understand? Yi Xian looked at the white-robed woman. Will there be any danger? The white-robed woman shook her head. I don't know. Yi Xian was just about to say something when the white-robed woman said with a smile, I can protect myself. She gently hugged Yi Xian as she spoke. Yi Xian's body stiffened. Yi Xian didn't notice that 2 streams of clear liquid had appeared on the white-robed woman's cheeks. After a long while, the white-robed woman released Yi Xian. She pulled out a storage ring and placed it in Yi Xian's hand with a faint smile. There's still time. She pointed a finger toward the sky as she spoke. Gee. The space in the sky suddenly cracked open. Immediately afterward, she transformed into a streak of white light and disappeared into the cracked space. Gone. Down below, Yi Xian's gaze was slightly blank. The white-robed woman stopped somewhere in the starry sky. She looked at her palm, and there were already 2 bloody marks on it. The white-robed woman's expression was cold, and no one knew what she was thinking. Moments later, she suddenly turned and looked down. After a long moment of silence, she transformed into a streak of white light and disappeared into the starry sky. The whirling world. Yi Xian returned to the teleportation portal. Situ Tingyan looked at Yi Xian. She left. Yi Xian nodded. Situ Tingyan smiled. Then I'm leaving as well. Yi Xian looked at Situ Tingyan. Senior sister, where are you going? Situ Tingyan laughed. I'm going to find a place that makes me feel threatened. Yi Xian. Situ Tingyan walked over to Yi Xian and patted Yi Xian on the shoulder. Little junior brother, we'll meet again. As soon as she finished speaking, she was about to leave. However, she seemed to have thought of something, and she suddenly gazed at the ancestor of the School of Secrets in the sky. The latter's expression changed. Sir? Situ Tingyan smiled. Don't be nervous. I don't kill people indiscriminately. The old man was speechless. Situ Tingyan continued. I want to show my ability before I leave, and you're the strongest here. So make your move. The white-haired old man hesitated for a moment before he said, I can't defeat you. Situ Tingyan rolled her eyes. I didn't say that you can defeat me. I just asked you to make your move, and then I'll show my ability." The white-haired old man was speechless. Situtingyan continued. "Make your move quickly. I'm busy." "Right. Remember to use your full strength." The white-haired old man glanced at Situtingyan. "Then I'll have to offend you." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly opened his palm. In the next moment, he suddenly slapped it towards Situtingyan. Bang! A palm swept down from the sky. As soon as it appeared, the expressions of countless experts in the surroundings changed drastically, and they retreated explosively, because the energy contained within that palm was truly too terrifying. At this moment, Yi Xian's expression had become solemn as well. That palm had definitely surpassed the perfect union realm. The white-haired old man stared fixedly at Situtingyan. Actually, he wanted to witness her strength as well. At this moment, everyone in the surroundings was looking at Situtingyan as well. The corners of Situtingyan's mouth curled up slightly. Her left thumb twitched slightly, and then a sword suddenly flew out from within its sheath. In the next moment, a ray of light flashed from below, and then a sword was pressed against the white-haired old man's throat. On the other hand, the white-haired old man's attack had vanished without a trace. Everyone in the surroundings was stunned when they witnessed this scene. Gu Wuqiao's legs even felt slightly weak. At this moment, he finally understood why his ancestor had been so terrified. It was too fucking terrifying. The white-haired old man gazed at Situtingyan with a complicated expression. Senior's sword Dao is unparalleled throughout the ages. Situtingyan roared with laughter. And then she gazed at Yi Xian and smiled. That attack from before is called instant death. Every strike of my sword kills an enemy within a 3 kilometers radius. I've once utilized this sword technique to kill a person who's 2 realms of cultivation above him. Now I'll pass it down to you. When she spoke up to this point, she seemed to have thought of something, and she roared with laughter. All those years ago, he passed down sword intent to me and allowed me to step into the sword Dao. Today, I'll pass down my sword technique to you. Interesting. Haha. As she spoke, she tapped with her finger. An ray of light shot into the center of Yi Xian's forehead. Yi Xian's figure trembled, and it didn't take long for countless pieces of information to surge into his mind. Situtingyan gazed at Yi Xian and smiled. Little junior brother, we'll meet again in the future. I hope we'll be able to discuss the Tao with the sword when we do. As soon as she finished speaking, she transformed into a ray of light that vanished into the horizon. She's gone. The experts from the whirling world instantly heaved sighs of relief when they saw Situtingyan leave as well. Meanwhile, 2 women suddenly arrived in front of Yi Xian, and it was Yuxi and Yuzun. Yuxi grinned. Young Master Yi. Yi Xian gazed at Yuxi. You're the sect master of the whirling sect? Yuxi smiled. I am. As she spoke, she opened her palm, and a scripture appeared there. She passed it to Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, this is the last scripture. Fate brought us together today, so I'll give it to young Master Yi. Fate. Li Shanshui and the others had extremely strange expressions on their faces. Damn it. She really knows how to talk. Needless to say, the whirling sect had really become the biggest winner, because the whirling sect hadn't suffered any losses this time. Actually, they'd come to an understanding now. The reason the whirling sect hadn't joined forces with them was definitely because they knew how formidable the person standing behind Yi Xian was, so they refused to cooperate with them. But this woman just refused to tell them. She'd caused them to be practically annihilated. She was too treacherous. Yi Xian glanced at Yuxi. He didn't refuse, and he took the scripture and said, Sect Master Yu, I've gathered all 9 scriptures, and I'm willing to share them with the whirling sect. Yuxi blinked. Really? Yi Xian nodded. Of course. Yuxi grinned. Thank you, young Master Yi. Actually, she was really happy, because even if Yi Xian didn't share them with the whirling sect, she wouldn't dare say anything. She didn't know if Yi Xian was really the master of the 9th dimension, but she knew that he was absolutely not an ordinary person. After Yi Xian put the scripture away, he glanced at everyone here. Everyone, return to your respective residences. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Meanwhile, Li Shanshui hurriedly said, Young Master Yi, we're all following you now. You. Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then he said, I'll look for all of you if I need anything. Li Shanxue hesitated for a moment, and then he said, Young Master Yi, I'll follow by your side. All the experts of the Black Hat sect had been killed, so it was utterly meaningless for him to stay in the whirling world. Yi Xian was about to speak when Li Shanxue added, Young Master Yi, my Black Hat sect has been around for over 100,000 years, and we still have some finances. If Young Master Yi doesn't mind, then I'll give them to Young Master Yi. Yi Xian glanced at Li Shanxue, and the latter hurriedly said, I don't have any ill intentions. I just want to follow Young Master Yi. Now Yi Xian was his only way out. Yi Xian thought for a moment and then he nodded. All right. Li Shanxue hurriedly said, Young Master Yi, please wait a moment. I'll go back and pack up. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Yi Xian glanced at the experts of the Dao Returning Institute and the Shao clan in the distance. They didn't make a stand. He didn't force them. Obviously, they wanted to stay in the whirling world, and they didn't really want to follow Yi Xian. After all, no one liked to be the subordinate of another. Moreover, the white-robed woman and the swordsman had left. Right at this moment, the ancestor of the profound secret sect suddenly looked at Gu Wuchao and said angrily, What are you still looking at? Hurry up and pay your respects to Young Master Yi. Are you trying to make me crawl out of my coffin from anger? Gu Wuchao was speechless. Chapter 1438. When he heard the white-haired old man, Gu Wuchao hurriedly walked over to Yi Xian and bowed respectfully to Yi Xian. From today onward, my profound secret sect swears to follow Young Master Yi to the death. Yi Xian gazed at the white-haired old man. The white-haired old man grinned. Young brother, it's their honor to follow you. He hesitated for a moment as he spoke, and then he said, I hope you'll treat them well as well. Actually, even though everyone here was aware that the white-robed woman and the swordsman were terrifying, they didn't know exactly how terrifying they were. However, the white-haired old man knew, because he was an expert above the oneness realm. However, not to mention that he was only a strand of his soul. Even his main body wouldn't be a match for a single attack from that woman. In other words, the strength of those two women had exceeded the scope of his understanding. If the profound secret sect followed Yi Xian, then it would definitely be able to attain glory once more. In the profound secret sect's opinion, it wasn't submission, it was an opportunity. An enormous opportunity. On many occasions, the accomplishments a person could attain in the future depended on who that person followed. The profound secret sect had arrived at a certain height, and it was very difficult for it to improve further, unless an extraordinarily monstrous genius appeared within the sect. However, that was even more difficult, because it had been many years since an expert above the oneness realm had appeared in the whirling world. Now, an opportunity had been placed before the profound secret sect, and it was to follow Yi Xian and rely on Yi Xian to bring the profound secret sect to a new height. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment when he heard the white-haired old man, and then he nodded. All right. He didn't refuse them. The reason Qing hadn't killed them was because she wanted to leave and leave some help for him. But now he really did need help. He wanted to reorganize the fifth dimension and the doubting. He wanted to truly rebuild order. And he needed people to accomplish all of that. After they heard the profound secret sect's ancestor speak, the other powers expressed their submission as well. They suddenly understood something. And it was that Yi Xian was a backer. This thigh was right here, so why not cling to it? Now that the profound secret sect had Yi Xian as their backer, if they didn't submit, what would they do if the profound secret sect came looking for trouble with them in the future? Most importantly, there was still the whirling sect in the whirling world. This time, the whirling sect didn't suffer any losses. It could be said that the whirling sect was currently the strongest sect. If they didn't cozy up to Yi Xian, it was very likely that they would be devoured by the whirling sect. So after weighing the pros and cons, basically all the powers present expressed their willingness to submit to Yi Xian. And Yi Xian did not refuse. Meanwhile, Li Shanxue appeared here, and he walked over to Yi Xian and smiled. Young Master Yi, let's go. Yi Xian nodded. All right. As he spoke, he glanced at the others. All of you stay here and wait for my orders. Everyone hurriedly nodded. Yi Xian turned around and left with Li Shanshui. After the two of them left, the others glanced at each other, and their eyes were filled with bitterness. This time, all of them were almost finished. On the other side, the whirling sex master, Yushi, remained silent, and no one knew what he was thinking. Exaltu smiled. Senior sister, are you slightly disappointed? Yushi smiled. What are you disappointed about? Exaltu gazed at the experts in the distance. Senior sister, you're disappointed that those two didn't kill all of them. If those two seniors killed all of them, then the whirling world would belong to my whirling sect. But now, all of them have sided with Yi Xian, so we can't attack or curse them. We seem to be quite passive instead, right? Exaltu smiled. Indeed. Yushi spoke softly, senior sister. Regardless of whether we admit it or not, that young Master Yi isn't someone we can afford to offend now. Even if he wants our whirling sect to submit, we have no other choice. Yushi fell silent. Exaltu continued. Fortunately, that young Master Yi doesn't seem to be very interested in the whirling world. Yushi suddenly raised his head and looked towards the horizon, and he spoke softly. I'm curious now. I'm curious about exactly what level of cultivation those two women have attained, and where they've gone. A short while later, everyone here left. Once all of them left, a slovenly old man appeared here. This slovenly old man was called over by the White Cloud swordsman, and everything had come to an end when he arrived here. The slovenly old man fell silent for a long time before he spoke softly. That young Master Yi isn't simple at all. Meanwhile, a figure suddenly appeared by the slovenly old man's side. It was the ancestor of the Dark Abyss, Dao Brother's second brother. Dao Brother's second brother gazed towards the direction Yi Xian had left towards. Senior brother, long time no see. The slovenly old man's face remained emotionless. Your Dark Abyss is gone. Dao Brother's second brother smiled. If it's gone, then it's gone. What's the big deal? The slovenly old man gazed at Dao Brother's second brother. You won't give up, right? Dao Brother's second brother roared with laughter. Do you think I should give up? The slovenly old man shook his head. Junior brother, why? You and Yuan were in the wrong in this matter. Dao Brother's second brother roared with laughter. I don't care if I'm in the wrong or not. All I know is that kindness must be repaid, and enmity must be repaid. The slovenly old man spoke softly. If you choose to take revenge, then you'll be doomed eternally. Dao Brother's second brother gazed at the slovenly old man. Senior brother, do you know his true identity? The slovenly old man shook his head. I don't. Dao Brother's second brother gazed at the slovenly old man and smiled. Senior brother, you didn't come back for this person, right? The slovenly old man glanced at Dao Brother's second brother. Junior brother, out of respect for Master, I'll say one more thing. Give up on taking revenge. If you insist on taking revenge, then you'll really be doomed eternally. He turned around and left once he finished speaking. Dao Brother's second brother smiled. Senior brother, aren't you underestimating me? The slovenly old man sighed. We're used to being invincible in Master's era. However, we don't know that there's always someone better out there. Dao Brother's second brother chuckled. How interesting. Two women scared you, senior brother. Senior brother, you're becoming less and less courageous as you live. The slovenly old man turned around and glanced at Dao Brother's second brother. Master once said, don't argue with a retard, because it will lower your IQ. I think Master's words are very reasonable. Dao Brother's second brother looked at the slovenly old man. Senior brother, don't forget that the Dao scripture belongs to our Dao sect. Now it's in the hands of outsiders. Why, don't you have any thoughts about it? The slovenly old man was silent. Dao Brother's second brother smiled. You don't have any thoughts, but I do. I believe that third junior sister and junior brother will not allow the Dao scripture to fall into the hands of outsiders. He turned around and left after he finished speaking. The slovenly old man sighed softly. Yi Xian brought Li Shanshui back to the fifth dimension. Inside the main hall, Guan Yin and the others were there, as were the experts of the doubting. It was worth mentioning that Bai Dizzy was also there. And now, the affairs of the entire fifth dimension were not only handled by Guan Yin alone, but also by Bai Dizzy. Bai Dizzy's management skills were really terrifying, not something that Guanyin could compare to. It should be known that Yi Xian's side was not only in the 5th dimension, but also in the 6th dimension, the Dao world, the Doubting, the underworld. There were so many places and so many forces. It could be said that Guanyin's ability was already somewhat insufficient. But after Bai Dizzy's arrival, she suddenly felt a lot more relaxed. As for fighting for power, whether it was her or Bai Dizzy, they did not have that level of power. Ordinary power was simply meaningless to them. Now Guanyin was slowly delegating power, because she also began to pay attention to personal cultivation. Over the years, because she had to deal with complicated matters, her cultivation had fallen behind. Yi Xian looked at everyone. Now our crisis has been temporarily resolved, but we still have a lot of things to do. At this time, Bai Dizzy walked out. He bowed slightly to Yi Xian and said, "I have something to report." Yi Xian looked at Bai Dizzy. "Speak." Bai Dizzy nodded. "We have 3 things to do now. The first is to formulate a set of laws that everyone will abide by. This set of laws will be the standard by which we will manage this world in the future. Those who violate the laws, no matter who they are, will be severely punished. I have already drafted this set of laws, and I will show it to you later." Yi Xian shook his head. "Not only for me to see, but also for everyone in the hall. Moreover, it has to be shown to the world." Bai Dizzy looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian said, "This set of laws will be the foundation by which we will manage this world in the future. So this set of laws can't be formulated by a single person or a few people. Everyone should participate in it." When they heard this, everyone hurriedly nodded to express their agreement. Bai Dizzy glanced at Yi Xian and nodded. "That's for the best." As for the second matter, even though the external crisis has been resolved, there might be an internal crisis soon. Alliance leader Yi, all the powers are envious of the mineral veins that you obtained earlier. Besides that, there are also some places in our universe with abundant spirit energy that everyone is envious of. Now the thoughts of many people have started to drift away. So we have to be extremely careful in how we distribute the benefits. Yi Xian glanced at Bai Dizzy. This Bai Dizzy has really thought things through. Actually, many powers have started to fall into chaos from within before collapsing. The current 5th dimension must also pay attention to this point. Bai Dizzy continued. As for the third matter, that is development. Vigorously develop. For now, we have resolved the crisis. However, because of Alliance leader Yi, this crisis might not exist for the time being. In the future, there might be an even bigger crisis. Yi Xian's face was filled with black lines. The White Emperor's son continued. In short, we need to be strong enough to protect ourselves. In addition, we must train as many outstanding people as possible. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian said, "Everyone retreat. Bai Dizzy, you stay behind." Everyone looked at each other and retreated. Inside the hall, only Yi Xian and Bai Dizzy were left. Yi Xian looked at Bai Dizzy. "Do you think that now is the right time to rebuild order?" Bai Dizzy shook his head. "Not suitable?" Yi Xian was somewhat puzzled. "Why?" Bai Dizzy softly said, "Because we have more problems to deal with. For example, the internal balance of power, how to divide the benefits. If these problems are not dealt with properly, it will be a hidden bomb. If you are not here one day, this bomb will explode and the entire 5th dimension will instantly collapse." As he said this, he looked at Yi Xian. "Right now, we can only take one step at a time. You must not be too hasty. Moreover, I feel that the problem you should be thinking about right now is not the 5th dimension in order, but the problem of your strength and the reason for your disaster. Moreover, the Dark Abyss has been destroyed, but is the ancestor Dark Abyss still alive? Will he take revenge? Moreover, you now have the complete version of the Tao scripture. This temptation is too great. Will some hidden forces come to snatch it? They might not dare to openly, but what about in the dark? Moreover, those 2 seniors have already left. If you are in danger, can you immediately let them come to the 5th dimension? The most important thing is that they are very strong, but this does not mean that you are strong. Do you understand?" Yi Xian was silent. P.S. Yesterday when I went to the real estate market, I suddenly discovered that I am a bit poor. FPZW. Chapter 1439. In the hall, Bai Dizzy glanced at Yi Xian with a complicated expression. Alliance leader Yi, don't think that our crisis has been resolved. In fact, according to my understanding and investigation of you, this matter is definitely not over. Yi Xian said softly. The cause of calamity? Bai Dizzy nodded. Yi Xian was silent. Bai Dizzy continued. For now, your top priority is to improve your strength. It would be best if you could attain Dao or even unification. Yi Xian nodded. I understand. Bai Dizzy continued. Do you still have the Dao cause and God seal that the ancestor gave you? Yi Xian nodded. Of course. Bai Dizzy said in a deep voice. I will make arrangements. Now you are the spiritual belief of our entire five-dimensional universe. This belief must be materialized. I will get people to build statues of you all over the world, so that people will believe in you. Then you will be able to obtain the power of faith continuously. Yi Xian frowned. Brainwashing. Bai Dizzy shook his head. It's not brainwashing. The entire universe treats you as their spiritual belief. You are the one who gave the five-dimensional universe everything. They are willing to believe in you. However, I want to materialize this power of faith for you to use. Yi Xian thought about it and nodded. All right. Bai Dizzy continued. There is one more thing. I have already recalled many of the former Dao Guardians. They also need the power of faith. Of course, if they want the power of faith, they will have to fight for it themselves. Of course, I will take care of it and not let them act recklessly for the sake of fighting for the power of faith. In addition, I will reintegrate the five-dimensional universe, the Dao world, the six-dimensional universe, and the Doubting. I will try my best to integrate everyone into one. There will be no division between the five-dimensional and the six-dimensional universe. Yi Xian nodded. This is very necessary. Bai Dizzy nodded. What I'm most afraid of is them forming small groups. If that happens, it will be very troublesome to manage them. Yi Xian looked at Bai Dizzy. I'll leave these matters to you. Bai Dizzy nodded. I will take care of the matters of the five-dimensional universe. As for you, you must increase your strength as soon as possible. Also, if possible, help Miss Nian Nian recover her memories. If she does, our universe will be safer. Yi Xian shook his head. I can't do anything about that. Bai Dizzy said in a low voice. Did Miss Nian deliberately lose her memory? Yi Xian nodded. It's highly possible. Bai Dizzy frowned. Why would she deliberately choose to lose her memory? Is it because of the disaster seed on you? Yi Xian whispered. Maybe it's because of this. Why didn't the white-robed Qing'er stay? Because of the cause of calamity. The cause of calamity had already affected her, so she chose to leave immediately. In other words, the stronger the person by her side, especially the kind of person who could change the trajectory of her fate, the more likely she would be targeted by the cause of calamity. And now, Nian Nian was not targeted by the cause of calamity, because she did not have the strength. Was that the reason? Yi Xian did not know, but he knew that Nian Nian definitely had her reasons for doing this. Bai Dizzy sighed softly. Her expression was complicated. Then let's not talk about Miss Nian Nian. Let's talk about you. You should have gathered all 9 Dao scriptures by now, right? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Bai Dizzy looked at Yi Xian. Many people are paying attention to you. Yi Xian smiled. You want me to share them? Bai Dizzy nodded. Yi Xian smiled. Then do you think I should share them? Bai Dizzy looked at Yi Xian. It depends on whether you want to or not. If you don't want to, no one can force you. Yi Xian said softly. I promised them that I would share them. Bai Dizzy said in a deep voice. Even if you want to share them, you can't just casually share them. Some people's cultivation is not enough to comprehend this Dao scripture. Do you understand what I mean? Yi Xian nodded. Bai Dizzy said. You deal with these things yourself. With that he left. Inside the hall, Yi Xian sat cross-legged on the ground. He opened his palm. The 9 Dao scriptures appeared in front of him. At this moment, Yi Jiming appeared beside him. Yi Xian looked at Yi Jiming. I never thought that I would really gather all 9 Dao scriptures. I just don't know if it's a blessing or a curse. Yi Jiming said. If it's a blessing, it's not a curse. If it's a curse, it can't be avoided. Yi Xian smiled. That's true. With that, he looked at the last 3 Tao scriptures. 2 of the scrolls were obtained from an yuan. These 2 scrolls were Tao and Law. Yi Xian frowned. Tao. Law. Yi Jiming opened the Tao scripture. After looking at it for a moment, she looked at Yi Xian. This Tao scripture can allow one to reach Tao Imperial and Tao Attainment. It describes these 2 realms, which is suitable for you now. As for Law, Yi Xian asked. Return to 1? Yi Jiming nodded. Yes, Yi Xian said in a deep voice. The Tao ancestor and the rest have not reached return to 1. Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian. What about Zhao Jiqing's generation? Hearing this, Yi Xian understood. Although the Tao ancestor has not reached return to 1, Zhao Jiqing has definitely reached return to 1. Obviously, it's not because of the Tao scripture, but because of the Tao ancestor's generation. Yi Jiming said in a deep voice. This Tao scripture is too profound. I can't understand it. Yi Xian was a little surprised. Even you can't understand it? Yi Jiming nodded. My realm is not high enough to understand it. For example, this sentence. Humans follow Earth, Earth follows Heaven, Heaven follows Tao, Tao follows nature. It's easy to understand from the words, but what is the true meaning of this sentence? Yi Xian was silent. Yi Jiming said in a deep voice. This Tao scripture has tens of thousands of words, and there are hundreds of Tao scriptures. In this world, there is not only Tao, but also Law. Saying this, she looked at Yi Xian. This senior who created the Tao scripture is really an amazing person. Yi Xian nodded. In this world, there are 2 kinds of experts, those within the Tao scripture and those outside. It could be said that the senior who created this scripture was absolutely terrifying. This was because he had created a complete cultivation system. And this cultivation system was the origin of all martial arts that were currently known to exist. Yi Jiming said in a deep voice, we can study this Tao scripture. If we can understand the Tao scripture, it will definitely benefit you greatly in terms of cultivation. As for the Tao scripture, martial arts, and heart sutras, I can't understand them at the moment. Yi Xian nodded. Take your time. As if thinking of something, he looked at the last Tao scripture. There were no words on it. Wordless Tao scripture? Yi Jiming opened the Tao scripture, and when she opened it, she was instantly stunned. Because there was nothing inside. It was empty. Wordless Tao scripture. Yi Xian and Yi Jiming exchanged glances. Their eyes were filled with confusion. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Could it be that the whirling sect gave us a fake one? Yi Jiming shook her head. I don't think so. Yi Xian nodded. I don't think it's possible either. Yi Jiming suddenly said. It seems like Miss Xian Chu hasn't returned to the whirling sect yet. Why don't we invite her over? Yi Xian put the Tao scripture away and disappeared from the hall with Yi Jiming. A while later, Yi Xian found Xian Chu, who was eating noodles in a small noodle shop in the city. Xian Chu was stunned when she saw Yi Xian. She put down her chopsticks and looked at Yi Xian. What's up? Yi Xian said with a smile. Miss Xian Chu, I have something to ask. Xian Chu nodded. Speak. Yi Xian took out the last Tao scripture and placed it in front of Xian Chu. Xian Chu glanced at Yi Xian. Did the sect master give it to you? Yi Xian nodded. Xian Chu fell silent. Yi Xian said with a smile. I've collected all 9 Tao scriptures. I promised the whirling sect's sect master that I'm willing to share them with your sect. Xian Chu nodded. She opened the Tao scripture. When she saw the Tao scripture, she was slightly stunned. Yi Xian frowned. What's the matter? Xian Chu said with a deep voice. I've never seen a Tao scripture before because master taught me verbally. Yi Xian fell silent. At this moment, a voice came from behind Yi Xian. Alliance Master Yi, do you need help? Yi Xian turned around and saw a woman standing not far from him. It was Venerable Yu. Venerable Yu smiled. Young Master Yi, are you wondering why there are no words in this Tao scripture? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Venerable Yu smiled. Young Master Yi, there are no words in this Tao scripture. Yi Xian frowned. Why? Venerable Yu looked at the Tao scripture and said softly, Young Master Yi, What is the great Tao? The true great Tao? Yi Xian fell silent. Venerable Yu looked at Yi Xian. Tao is not only the Tao of the universe, but also the Tao of nature. The Tao is in the matter, and the matter is in the Tao. All things lead to the same destination, and they all lead to the Tao. Everyone is pursuing Tao, but they don't know that Tao is right beside them. Tao is you, and you are Tao. Yi Xian fell silent. Venerable Yu smiled. You don't understand, do you? Yi Xian nodded. Venerable Yu smiled. On the surface, it's easy to understand, but it's not so easy to understand the concept. Just like what people say, a mountain is not a mountain is still a mountain, and a mountain is not a mountain. This is a concept of life. Those who haven't experienced it won't understand it no matter what you tell them. As she spoke, she looked at Yi Xian and added, Tao was not just a tangible substance, a thoughtful spirit, or a rational law. Instead, it was the invisible, ethereal, and spiritual root of the universe that created all of this. Matter, spirit, and law were all derivatives of Tao. Tao is the innate qi, the primordial chaos. Tao is the ancestor of nature, the origin of all things in the universe. Mr. Yi, this last Tao scripture is broad and profound. Even my whirling sect has only comprehended a little bit of it, and this little bit is like a drop in the ocean for this Tao scripture. When she spoke up to hear, she looked at the Taoist scripture with a complicated expression. The ancestor of my whirling sect once said that the knowledge of this Taoist scripture is boundless. Even if he spent his entire life studying it, he wasn't able to study it completely. Not to mention studying it completely, he didn't even study a tenth of it. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian asked, Senior, where did the owner of this Tao scripture go? Venerable Yu looked at Yi Xian. It said that he died. Yi Xian was stunned. Died. Venerable Yu nodded. Yi Xian frowned. How is that possible? Venerable Yu shook her head. Nothing is impossible, Yi Xian said in a deep voice. Did he die naturally or was he killed? Venerable Yu said softly. I don't know. However, it shouldn't be a natural death. This kind of expert can study Tao so thoroughly, so how could he die naturally? But if he was killed? Saying that, she didn't continue. Chapter 1440. Killed. Yi Xian fell silent. If the owner of this Tao scripture was killed, then what does that mean? Yi Xian didn't dare to think about it. At this moment, Venerable Yu suddenly smiled. Don't think about that. Young Master Yi, you already have 9 Tao scriptures and all of them contain Tao scriptures, martial arts, and mental cultivation techniques. Moreover, I can see that you've already learned the Tao fist and Tao body. Since that's the case, then you might as well learn the remaining 3 Tao scriptures, martial arts, and mental cultivation techniques. Yi Xian looked at Venerable Yu. Senior, please guide me. Venerable Yu blinked. Young Master Yi, if I guide you, then you'll have to let me read the Tao scriptures. Yi Xian smiled. I've already said that I want to share the Tao scriptures with your whirling sect. Venerable Yu wouldn't think that I'm joking, right? Venerable Yu laughed. How could I? Since that's the case, then I'll thank young Master Yi on behalf of the whirling sect. Yi Xian nodded. Let's begin. Just as Bai Dizzy said, his top priority now was to improve his strength. This Tao scripture was the best way for him to improve his strength. As for the Tao scriptures, his understanding wasn't as thorough as the whirling sect. If he had the whirling sect's help, then he would be able to comprehend these Tao scriptures much faster. At this moment, Venerable Yu smiled. Young Master Yi, I didn't come alone this time. I've brought a few elders from my whirling sect. They've been studying the Tao scriptures in my whirling sect all year round, and their understanding of the Tao scriptures far surpasses ordinary people. With their help, young Master Yi will be able to comprehend these Tao scriptures better. As soon as she finished speaking, 4 old men suddenly appeared behind her. The 4 of them bowed slightly to Yi Xian. Greetings, young Master Yi. Yi Xian smiled. Then let's begin. Venerable Yu smiled. Let's go somewhere else? Yi Xian nodded. In next to no time, everyone arrived at the sword hall that Yi Xian resided in. Yi Xian called Arrow, and Lanxiu, Jiu, and the others to the hall. At times like this, they naturally had to be there. This was because their study of the Tao scriptures would be of great help to them. Inside the hall, Yi Xian took out all the Taoist scriptures, the 9 scrolls of Tao scriptures. Yu Zun had a complicated expression as he looked at the 9 Tao scriptures. She did not expect Yi Xian to have gathered all 9 volumes of the Taoist scripture. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly said, "Let's start with the first volume." The first volume? Yu Zun looked at Yi Xian. "We're not going to start from the last 3 volumes. Yi Xian smiled and said, "I'll take the first volume." Yu Zun glanced at the women, and she understood. Yu Zun looked at the 4 elders behind him. "We will start from the first scroll. Be more specific." The 4 elders nodded. Soon, the 4 elders began to explain the first volume of the Tao scriptures, while Yi Xian asked Guan Yin to record it down. Yi Xian was also listening attentively. This was because the 4 elders were very detailed, and there were many points of knowledge that he and Guan Yin did not discover. It was worth mentioning that Nian Nian was also at the side. She was also listening. No one noticed that when the 4 elders were explaining the Tao scriptures, she would shake her head from time to time, as if saying that this was not right. Ancient God Abyss. At the moment when the Dark Abyss was destroyed, the happiest was naturally the Ancient God Abyss. They had fought with the Dark Abyss for many years, and now, the Dark Abyss was finally destroyed. In their star sector, the Ancient God Abyss could be said to be the strongest. At the top of a pyramid, Suja stood quietly. In front of him was a white-haired elder. This person was his master, and also the current leader of the Ancient God Abyss. The white-haired elder said softly, "I heard that young Master Yi has gathered all 9 Tao scriptures?" Suja glanced at the white-haired elder and nodded. The white-haired elder chuckled. "In the current 5th dimension, there must be many places that need manpower. How about this? Let us personally go to the 5th dimension and see if young Master Yi needs any help." Suja had a strange expression. Was he going to help? He wanted to read the Tao scriptures. Of course, there was nothing wrong with that. For the Tao scriptures, especially those like his master, the temptation was huge. Soon the two left the Ancient God Abyss and headed to the 5th dimension. In the Tao tomb, inside the hall, the Lord looked at Luo Ho and the others and smiled. "Don't you have anything to say?" Luo Ho hesitated, then said, "I've been quite free recently. Why don't we find a place to walk and relax?" Aku nodded. "Indeed. Why don't we choose the 5th dimension? The scenery there is quite good." The Lord laughed. "Then what are we waiting for? Let's go." With that, they got up and left for the 5th dimension. 9 Tao scriptures. By now, who did not know that Yi Xian had gathered all 9 Tao scriptures? Everyone was envious of him. However, basically no one dared to have any evil thoughts. One had to know that even someone as strong as An Yuan had disappeared without a trace overnight. However, there were always exceptions. In the starry sky of the 5th dimension, an old man stood quietly. Beside him, there was a young man. The old man looked down and said softly, "I never thought that someone would actually gather all the Tao scriptures. Interesting." The young man looked down at the 5th dimension. "Snatch it." The old man glanced at the young man. "Snatch it? What are you going to use to snatch it? There are at least a dozen consolidation realm experts down there. Do you think the 2 of us can fight them?" The young man coldly looked down at the 5th dimension. "Just a dozen." The old man shook his head. A dozen consolidation realm experts is naturally not scary. The scary thing is this young Master Yi. What kind of existence is An Yuan? It was once a force created by second brother Tao. However, it disappeared without a trace in one night. And the whirling world, the major forces of the whirling world have all submitted to this young Master Yi. You can imagine how terrifying the 2 women who went to the whirling world are. The young man said softly, "But grandfather will not give up, right?" The old man smiled. "Of course. Who doesn't want to see the complete version of the Tao scriptures? However, we can change the method, such as cooperation. In any case, this young Master Yi is also sharing the Tao scriptures. In that case, sharing one more should not be a problem for him. However, we will have to pay a price." The young man was silent. The old man said again, As a person, you must be able to judge the situation. My Nanua clan has been able to survive for so many years because of one word: caution. Many families and forces perished because they were too arrogant, too arrogant. As he spoke, he looked down at the fifth dimension and said softly, although our Nanua clan has a deep foundation, we cannot afford to be reckless. The young man looked down. I heard that Yi Xian is the number one among the younger generation. I want to meet him. The old man smiled. We can exchange pointers, but there is no need to become enemies. Do you understand? The young man nodded. Of course. The old man smiled. Then let us pay a visit to this young Master Yi. The two disappeared from the scene. Below, in a certain hall, Bai Dizzy looked at the old man and young man in front of him. You two are from the Nanua clan? The old man smiled. Yes. Bai Dizzy cupped his fists. Forgive me for being ignorant, but I have never heard of this Nanua clan. The old man smiled. Nanua clan is quite far from here. It is normal that you have never heard of it. Bai Dizzy smiled. How far? The old man looked at Bai Dizzy. You know about Whirling World and Ancient God Abyss. Do you know about Xian City? Bai Dizzy frowned. Xian City? The old man nodded. Bai Dizzy shook his head. I don't know. The old man smiled. We are not from Xian City. However, we are quite far from it. Bai Dizzy looked at the old man. You are here for the Tao scripture? The old man nodded. Yes. My Nanua clan also wants to look at the Tao scripture. Of course, we will not look for it for free. We can cooperate with young Master Yi. Bai Dizzy smiled. You are welcome. However, Alliance leader Yi is busy now. I wonder if you can wait for a moment? The young man frowned. He was a little displeased. The old man smiled. Of course. Bai Dizzy smiled. It is not that I am neglecting you too. Young Master Yi has instructed that no one is to disturb him. So, I hope you two can understand. The old man smiled. It doesn't matter. Go do what you need to do. Bai Dizzy cupped his fists and retreated. Inside the hall, the young man said coldly, What arrogance. The old man smiled. We are the ones begging him now. As he said that, he glanced at the young man. Qing'er, you must correct your attitude. Because from the looks of it, my Nanua clan does not have any advantage when facing this young Master Yi. We have a deep foundation, but the power behind this young Master Yi is even more unfathomable. The young man was silent. The old man continued. This time, we are here to seek cooperation, not to seek enmity. Even if we can't cooperate, we must try our best not to be enemies with this young Master Yi. As he said that, he looked at the young man. Qing'er, if you want to become the clan's heir and inherit the clan, you must learn how to conduct yourself well. Otherwise, no matter how talented you are or how strong you are, the clan will not let you be in power. The person in power does not need to be too strong, but you must have a good head. Otherwise, if you are not careful, it will bring disaster to the clan. The young man was silent. The old man continued. Just cultivating is not enough. To become the clan's heir, strength is part of it, but emotional intelligence and conduct are what we old fellows value more. The young man said softly, I understand. The old man nodded. This time, I brought you out as a test. As for what the test is, I won't tell you. Think about it yourself. If you pass the test, you still have hope of becoming the heir. If you fail, when we return, the clan will arrange for you to go to the trial grounds to cultivate. We will train you to be the clan's guardian and not the heir. Do you understand what I mean? The young man slowly clenched his right hand and lowered his head in silence. The old man glanced at the young man. Compared to the other heirs, your only advantage is that you are stronger than them, but, at this moment, a voice came from outside the door. I wonder if young Master Yi is here? The voice was very familiar. The young man frowned. The old man said in a deep voice, He is here too. As he said that, he stood up and left. Outside the hall, Bai Dizzy was receiving a young man in a luxurious robe. Nanua Xiao. He was also one of the young masters of the Nanua clan. Nanua Xiao bowed slightly to Bai Dizzy. Senior, I am the 7th young master of the Nanua clan. I am here to see young Master Yi. Bai Dizzy glanced at Nanua Xiao. I'm sorry young Master Yi is in seclusion. Nanuashio smiled. All right, I will wait for him. As he said that, he took out a storage ring and put it in by Dizzy's hand. Senior, this is a Dao pill. If you are trying to reach the Dao realm, with the help of this pill, your chances will increase by at least 50%. Of course, with Senior's talent and strength, reaching the Dao realm is nothing to you. However, this is Junior's gift. I hope Senior will accept it. Hearing this, Bai Dizzy's expression changed. P.S. In the book review section, there is a reader who keeps scolding me. His scolding is very unpleasant. He comes every day to greet me and my family. To be honest, I really don't understand why he hates me so much. The insults between the lines are as if I am the murderer of his father. Moreover, when he scolds you, you can't scold him or even ban him. If you ban him, he will go to the book group to scold you or change his account to scold you. Just like before, a reader wrote an outline for me and asked me to write it according to his outline. I ignored him. 2 days later, he messaged me and scolded me on QQ crazily. He said all kinds of nasty things like how my family deserved it and so on. Sometimes, I couldn't help but reply, get lost, and he would say, "Heh, is this how an author is? Is this all you have?" I was speechless. I, Luan, know my own limitations. This is my second book. I'm not a newbie, but I'm not an old man either. I have a lot of shortcomings, but I've been working hard, hoping to write better. After all, this is my job. If it's not good, you can criticize and deserve to be criticized. You can even scold me, but just scold me. There's no need to involve my family. Actually, some readers don't know that some of their good suggestions in the book review section have been integrated into the book, because I have to admit that some of the readers' ideas are really awesome. In the end, many people are debating which of the 3 swords is the strongest. In your heart, who do you think is the strongest? Also, Yixian's true identity will slowly be revealed. Chapter 1441. Dao Core. He would be lying if he said he wasn't tempted. After all, he Bai Dizzy was now at Dao controlling realm. Achieving Dao realm was his goal. However, he didn't accept it. Bai Dizzy smiled. Young master, this gift is too expensive. This old man can't accept it. As for meeting Alliance leader Yi, you can wait with your clansmen for a while because young Master Yi is about to come out. He cupped his fists and left. Nan Yushio's eyes flashed with surprise. He didn't expect this old man to be able to refuse this temptation. Bai Dizzy naturally refused this temptation. Take people's hands and break them. It could be said that in the 5th dimension, other than Yi Xian, he had the greatest authority. If he was corrupt, the impact wouldn't be bad. Most importantly, if his subordinates followed his example, then wouldn't his original intention of establishing order be destroyed? Why did he, Bai Dizzy, submit to Yi Xian? Was it because of his future? No. He wanted to rebuild order. Nan Yushio put away the pill and looked at the old man and young man not far away. So it's Elder Qi and Brother Qing. Nan Yushio smiled. 7th young master is also here. Nan Yushio nodded. Gathering Dao scriptures is such a big event. I naturally came to join in the fun. Nan Yuqi said softly. It seems that Xian City and the other clans should also know. Nan Yushio smiled. That's for sure. However, as far as I know, Xian City's city lord is currently doing his best to investigate this young Master Yi. I wonder what their attitude is. Nan Yuqi frowned. Investigation. Nan Yushio nodded. I don't know what they are investigating this young Master Yi, but it's definitely not simple. He looked at Nan Yuqi and smiled. Grand Elder, this is not a private matter, so I hope we can cooperate. Nan Yuqi said solemnly. Of course. Internal strife was bound to happen in a big clan, but it definitely depended on the situation. Infighting when there were external enemies was definitely a big taboo in the family. The ancestor of Nanyue had once left behind his last words. The position of heir could be fought over, but they could not ally with outsiders to act against their own people. If someone did this, then anyone in the clan could summon the ancestor. He left behind a wisp of his soul to severely punish those who colluded with outsiders. The reason why the Nanyue clan was able to maintain its prosperity for so many years was largely related to the last words left behind by this ancestor. Because no one dared to act recklessly. Even if you become the clan leader, if you don't get the position right, once the ancestor's soul fragment appears, you'll still be doomed. They could fight for it. But it has to be healthy competition. Nanyueshio looked around and smiled. Elder Chi, when I came, I took a stroll around the cosmos. Did you notice something? This place isn't normal. Nanyuechi asked. What do you mean? Nanyueshio whispered. If I'm not wrong, this young Master Yi is very ambitious. He wants to rebuild the doubting order of the past. Nanyuechi was silent. Nanyueshio continued. Moreover, the people here believe in this young Master Yi. In their hearts, young Master Yi is God. At this point he looked at Nanyuechi. If I'm not wrong, the power of faith is going to appear again. Nanyuechi whispered. I'm afraid it won't be that easy. Nanyueshio smiled. It really won't be that easy. However, this young Master Yi isn't that easy to bully. This time, let's see if those people dare to suppress him. Nanyuechi said in a deep voice. Wasn't the doubting at its peak in the past? Wasn't it suppressed to the point of extinction? If it wasn't for that Zhao Jiqing, the doubting would have been extinct. But wasn't she exiled in the end? Nanyueshio shook his head. It's different. Very different. Nanyuechi asked. What's different? Nanyuechi said with a smile. I've investigated. Young Master Yi and the doubting were rivals. However, when that Qingzhu saw Yi Xian, he immediately killed the Dao ancestor's body and made Yi Xian the Dao Lord. In other words, that Qingzhu thinks highly of young Master Yi. And there must be something behind this. Nanyuechi said in a deep voice. The force behind young Master Yi. Nanyuechi nodded. 3 people have appeared before. The first one killed a human venerable from the dark abyss with a clone. We don't know how strong this person's force is. We also don't know where this person came from. The second person was the white-robed woman. She had destroyed an Yuan with a single punch. And her strength was definitely far beyond the consolidation realm. She might have even reached the legendary level, or even higher. Even Xian City would have to be wary of such an expert. There's also that swordsman woman. She used to be the sect leader of the sword sect, Situ Tingyun. Although she doesn't fight much, she might not be weaker than that white-robed woman. She looked at Nanyuechi. These 2 are enough to intimidate Xian City and that place. Nanyuechi said in a deep voice. They can intimidate, but they might not be afraid. Nanyuechi smiled. Yes. Young Master Yi wants to rebuild order and restore faith energy. This is equivalent to touching someone's interests. Moreover, young Master Yi has the complete version of the Tao scripture. That place will definitely be tempted. They don't have a choice. Once young Master Yi rebuilds order, then does doubting those who were exiled, like this Qingzhu, mean that Yi Xian will save them? Once they come out, do you think that place will let Yi Xian save them? Nanyuechi was silent. Nanyuechi said softly. This place looks peaceful, but it's not. Danger lurks everywhere. This time, it's also a challenge for our Nanyuechi clan. Following young Master Yi, we can share the complete version of the Tao scripture, but it might also bring trouble to ourselves. Nanyuechi was silent. Nanyuechi suddenly said, we can use something to exchange with young Master Yi. After seeing the Tao scripture, we will no longer have anything to do with him. Nanyuechi shook his head. Nanyuechi looked at Nanyuechi and smiled. 9th brother, if this young Master Yi is as simple as you, then it would be great. Nanyuechi frowned. What do you mean? Nanyuechi smiled. 9th brother, do you think our Nanyuechi clan has anything that can compare to this Tao scripture? Nanyuechi's lips moved, but he had nothing to say. Because there isn't. Nanyuechi continued. Do you think this young Master Yi will let us enjoy his Tao scripture for free? Of course not. Look at that old man, he's not simple. Do you think this young Master Yi is a good person? Nanyuechi was silent. Nanyuechi smiled. If we want the Tao scripture, we must pay a price and it might be very big. Nanyuechi said in a deep voice. What does Patriarch think? Nanyuechi shrugged. Patriarch wants me to understand this young Master Yi. Saying that, he looked at the sky. Not only our Nan Yuechi clan, Xian City, Gu clan, Qi clan, and that place, they should have sent people to this universe. I believe they are not only investigating young Master Yi, but also the people behind him. Where did these people come from? Nan Yuechi looked around. My Nan Yuechi clan has also investigated, but there is no news of these people, right? Nan Yuechi nodded. Yes. This is the scariest part. These people behind him are so powerful, but not only there is no news of them in this universe, even our place has no news of them. Then here comes the problem. Where are these people now? They can't be hiding and cultivating in secret, right? Nan Yuechi said softly. Looks like I still underestimated this young Master Yi. Nan Yuechi smiled, then looked at Nan Yueqing. Little brother Qing, I know you are very strong, but when you see this young Master Yi, please be polite. Even if we can't cooperate with him, we must not become enemies with him. Nan Yueqing was expressionless. I don't need you to teach me this. Nan Yuechi laughed. I'm just reminding you. At this moment, Bai Dizzy appeared in front of the three. He looked at them. The three of you, Alliance Master Yi invites you. Nan Yuechi cupped his fists. Thank you. Under Bai Dizzy's lead, the three of them came to a courtyard. Yi Xian didn't meet the three of them in the sword hall because Yu Zun and the others were still explaining the Tao scripture. Inside the courtyard, when he saw Yi Xian, Nan Yuechi cupped his fists and said with a smile, Young Master Yi. Yi Xian also cupped his fists and said with a smile, The three of you are from Nan Yuechi clan? Nan Yuechi nodded. That's right. Yi Xian made an inviting gesture. The three of you please sit. Nan Yuechi and the other two sat around the stone table. Nan Yuechi looked at Yi Xian and said with a smile, Young Master Yi, I won't beat around the bush. This time, I want to represent my Nan Yuechi clan to cooperate with young Master Yi. Yi Xian said with a smile. Tao scripture? Nan Yuechi nodded. Yi Xian smiled slightly. I wonder what Nan Yuechi clan wants to use to exchange. Nan Yuechi was speechless and didn't know what to say. What to use to exchange? Nothing can be used to exchange for it. At this time, Nan Yuechi suddenly said with a smile, Young Master Yi, what Elder Qi said just now was just a joke. Actually, the main reason we came here this time is to get to know young Master Yi. Yi Xian glanced at Nan Yuechi and said with a smile, Is that so? Nan Yuechi laughed. Of course. We've long heard that young Master Yi is a genius, the number one in the younger generation. This time we came here to get to know young Master Yi and see if we can be friends. Yi Xian shook his head. I don't deserve to be called the number one in the younger generation. As for being friends, I Yi Xian, am willing to make friends. Nan Yuechi smiled. Young Master Yi, I wonder how much do you know about the history of doubting? Yi Xian looked at Nan Yuechi. It's limited to this generation. Nan Yuechi thought for a moment and said, Tao physique was once glorious. Incomparably glorious. Especially Lord Qing's generation. At that time, doubting's faith power made all the worlds fear it. But later doubting suddenly declined. Lord Qing's generation went missing. Young Master Yi, do you know why? Yi Xian shook his head. I don't know. Nan Yuechi was about to speak when Yi Xian suddenly smiled and said, I don't want to know either. Nan Yuechi was stunned. Yi Xian smiled and said, You three, I'm currently studying the 9 scrolls of Tao scripture with whirling sex powerhouses. Are you interested? Hearing this, Nan Yuechi was silent. Nan Yuechi was also silent. Nan Yueqing suddenly said, We are interested, but will you let us see it? On the side, Nan Yuechi shook his head. This silly brother. Nan Yuechi also shook his head. Why should he let them see it? Chapter 1442. Yi Xian looked at Nan Yueqing and said with a smile, Then do you think I should show it to you? Nan Yueqing was about to speak, but Yi Xian got up and left. He didn't know what kind of force this Nan Yueqing was, but he was sure that the other party wanted benefits but didn't want to put in too much effort. Since that was the case, then there was no need to cooperate. Although he, Yi Xian, could share Tao scriptures, it was only with those who helped him. These people in front of him had never helped him, so why should he share them? He, Yi Xian, was not a good person. nor was he a charity. Moreover, he didn't share all Tao scriptures. For example, some self-release realm experts, he would only share the first and second volumes and not the last few volumes, because doing so wouldn't bring any benefits to the other party, and might even bring trouble to them. As Bai Dizzy said, Tao scriptures could be shared but not recklessly. After Yi Xian left, inside the hall, Nan Yueqi looked at Nan Yueshio. Nan Yueshio said softly, "What he wants, the three of us can't decide." On the side, Nan Yueqing frowned. "What does he want?" Hearing this, Nan Yueqi sighed softly. At this time, he suddenly understood that Nan Yueqing was not suitable to be the clan's heir. Although he was the most talented among all the young masters, his strength was also the highest. But his understanding of the world was the lowest among all the young masters. This was also normal because Nan Yueqing spent most of his time cultivating in the clan, and rarely dealt with outside matters. Therefore, in terms of understanding of the world, he was too lacking compared to the other young masters. On the side, Nan Yueshio said with a smile, "This young master Yi wants us to be together with him. In other words, he wants to tie our Nan Yueqing together with him." Nan Yueqing said solemnly, "Didn't you say that the force behind him is extremely powerful? Then what's the problem with being tied to him?" Nan Yueshio said with a smile, "It's a big problem. We all know that the force behind him is extremely powerful, but what about his enemies? Currently, the known enemies are not people our Nan Yueqing clan can provoke. But who knows if he has other enemies?" Nan Yueqing was silent. Nan Yueshio continued, "Being bound to young Master Yi has great benefits, but the danger is also great. Moreover, there are unknown dangers." Saying that, he shook his head and smiled. "You want benefits, but you don't want to put in any effort. It's human nature." Nan Yueqing suddenly said, "That Tao scripture, must my Nanyue tribe obtain it?" Nan Yueshio was silent. Nan Yueqing said again, "If we don't have to, we don't have to get involved in this mess." Nan Yueshio smiled. "Everyone understands this, but this Tao canon is also an opportunity for our Nanyue clan. You know what? Oftentimes, a single opportunity was enough to change an entire clan. Although it might also cause the family to be consigned to eternal damnation. But who doesn't want to give it a try?" Nan Yueqing shook his head. "This Yi Xian won't let us freeload." With that, he got up and left. Inside the hall, Nan Yueshio smiled. "It seems that this matter can only be decided by the patriarch." This was a decision that concerned the rise and fall of the clan. It wasn't something that he or an elder could make a decision on their own. Nan Yueqi nodded. "Let's go back first." With that, he and Nan Yueshio got up and left. Outside the hall, Nan Yueshio smiled and said, "Elder Qi, you go back first. I want to take a stroll in this universe." Nan Yueqi glanced at Nan Yueshio and nodded. "Be careful." With that, he turned around and disappeared. Sword Hall. After Yi Xian returned to Sword Hall, Yuzun and the others were still studying Tao scripture. At first it was research, but now it's a discussion. Nian Nian was also quietly listening. Yi Xian walked to Nian Nian and sat down. Seeing Yi Xian, Nian Nian suddenly showed a bright smile. Her right hand naturally hugged Yi Xian's arm. Yi Xian smiled and said, "Do you understand?" Nian Nian blinked. "I understand." Yi Xian was stunned. Nian Nian looked at Yuzun and the others in the distance. They said something wrong. Everyone in the surroundings fell silent when they heard Nian Nian, and all of them looked at Nian Nian. No one thought that Nian Nian was talking nonsense. Who is this person? She's a fifth dimension Tendo. Yi Jiming walked over to Nian Nian and smiled. Where did we go wrong? Nian Nian blinked, and then looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled and said, "It's fine. Speak boldly." Nian Nian hesitated for a moment, and then pointed at a Tao scripture. This Tao scripture doesn't teach people how to attain Tao, but how to understand Tao. Because we are a part of Tao, but we just don't know it. Tao is ourselves, but many people don't know this and still seek it everywhere. At this point, she glanced at everyone, and when she saw that everyone was looking at her, she hurriedly lowered her head. At the side, an old man from Whirling Sect said in a trembling voice, "You please continue." Nian Nian glanced at Yi Xian, and Yi Xian smiled lightly and encouraged her. "Continue." Nian Nian hesitated for a moment, and then she nodded. This scroll only tells us what Dao is, and how to understand and recognize Dao. It doesn't teach you how to attain Dao, because you are a part of Dao, but you just don't know enough. As she spoke, she glanced at everyone in the hall. The direction of your research is wrong. The hall was silent. Yi Xian also fell silent. The direction was wrong. What is Dao? Actually, we are a part of Dao. We don't need to find how to attain Dao, but to find a way to understand ourselves. Understanding ourselves is to understand Dao. After understanding Dao, is there still a need to attain Dao? At this moment, Nian Nian pointed at the first Dao scripture. Escape. The escape mentioned in this scroll doesn't mean that you have to escape from the Dao, because even if you escape, you will still be within Dao. Yi Jiming asked, why? Nian Nian looked at Yi Jiming. Because you are Dao, where can you escape to? Yi Jiming frowned slightly. Then what is escape one referring to? Nian Nian smiled. This escape one refers to uncertainty. Uncertainty. Everyone looked at Nian Nian, and one of the old men said respectfully, Your Excellency, what does uncertainty mean? Nian Nian grinned. Uncertainty is fate. Fate is also one of the Dao, but fate is uncertain. For example, what family you were born in, what environment you were born in. These are uncertain, but you can change fate, control fate. In other words, escape one. Through hard work, you can change yourself, become that escape one, but you are still within Dao, just that you already have the ability to control your own fate. Yi Jiming said solemnly. In other words, no matter what we do, we are still within Dao. Nian Nian nodded. From this scroll, that's the case. Because you are a part of Dao. Speaking of this, at this point she hesitated, then said, But if you are very, very strong, you can defy Dao. Yi Jiming was a little confused. Defy Dao. Nian Nian nodded. Dao exists, but it can be defied, broken, and even destroyed. Yi Jiming said solemnly, How to defy? How to break? How to destroy? Nian Nian blinked. I don't know. Yi Jiming. Yi Xian shook his head with a smile. Then what do you know? Nian Nian giggled. I only know this much. Yi Xian. At this time, Venerable Yu suddenly said, Why don't we let her help us? Yi Xian looked at Venerable Yu, and Venerable Yu said solemnly, Her understanding of these Dao scriptures far surpasses ours. With her help, we can better understand these Dao scriptures, and then record them down. At that time, you can use the Dao scriptures we have recorded to teach the experts of the fifth dimension. What do you think? Yi Xian smiled. Of course. As he spoke, he looked at Nian Nian. Nian Nian, help them look at this Dao scripture, okay? Nian Nian nodded. Okay. Yi Xian gently rubbed Nian Nian's little head. His intuition told him that Nian Nian was about to recover her memories. Venerable Yu and the others continued to study the Dao scriptures, while Yi Xian came to a courtyard. He sat cross-legged on the ground and slowly closed his eyes. Instant kill sword. This was what Situ Tingyan had taught him before she left. Previously, he had been busy and did not have the time to cultivate it. Now he decided to cultivate this sword technique. Like what Bai Dizzy said. Was the crisis really resolved? No. This might just be the beginning. No matter what, like what Bai Dizzy said, his top priority now was to increase his strength. Only with great strength could he face everything. Instant kill sword. One sword, one kill. After understanding this instant kill sword, Yi Xian's expression gradually became solemn. This sword technique's strength far surpassed his imagination. It could be said that it was the most suitable sword technique for him to cultivate. The single sword of life and death and single sword of soul were taught to him by the plain-dressed woman. However, the strength of these two sword techniques depended on his sword Dao cultivation and realm. Evidently, his current sword Dao cultivation and realm were not enough to display the true power of these two sword techniques. However, this instant kill sword was different. This sword technique was just right for him to cultivate. After a while, Yi Xian started to study this sword technique. Xian City. In the city lord's mansion, an old man quickly walked to a side hall. The old man bowed respectfully towards the side hall. City lord, I have investigated. A woman's voice came from inside the hall. Speak. The old man said in a deep voice. The plain-dressed senior in my Xian city is the Tao protector of the fifth dimension's young master Yi. After a moment of silence, the woman's voice came again. Are you sure? The old man said in a deep voice. Absolutely sure. Creak. The door suddenly opened and a woman walked out. The old man hurriedly lowered his head, not daring to look at the woman. The woman looked towards the sky and said softly, his Tao protector. At this time the old man said again. The Tao sect's second brother sent someone to Xian City, saying that he hopes that we can deal with young Master Yi together. After the matter is done, he will share the Tao scripture with us. The woman said softly, share the Tao scripture. What a tempting condition. The old man said, City Lord, are you going to agree to the Tao sect? The woman walked into the distance. Prepare a big gift and send it over personally. You will personally deliver it. You understand what I mean, right? The old man was stunned and then said, to the Tao sect. The woman stopped and turned to look at the old man. Can you take that woman's sword? The old man was speechless. The woman asked again, can my Xian city take that woman's sword? The old man was speechless. The woman blinked. Since you can't, then why are you asking such a stupid question? Of course, the gift is for young Master Yi. Remember, don't be stingy. Also send some pills and whatnot. Let him feel the great kindness of our Xian city. Understand? The old man was speechless. P.S. Can you let me feel your great kindness? I'm looking forward to it. Chapter 1443. The woman slowly walked to the front of a pool, and the old man stood respectfully behind her. From the beginning until the end, the old man hadn't even raised his head to look at her. It was out of respect, but it was also out of fear. The woman wore a white robe with a violet ribbon tied around her waist, and she had a graceful and slender figure. She sat on a rock by the side of the pool, and she gazed at the pool before her. A school of small fish had surrounded her. The woman looked at the school of wandering fish, and her thoughts had already drifted away. The woman in a plain dress. At this moment, her mind was filled with that woman in a plain dress. On that day, a woman in a plain dress had entered Xian City and instantly killed 3 extraordinary experts of Xian City, right in front of her. Those 3 extraordinary experts of Xian City couldn't even withstand a single attack from that woman. Terror. She'd never felt terror in her entire life. But on that day, she'd felt terror for the first time. What was the greatest taboo on the path of the martial Tao? Naturally, it was fear. She'd challenged the woman in a plain dress. However, she hadn't been able to withstand a single attack from the woman. After the woman attacked, it wasn't terror that she felt, it was despair. At that instant, it was the first time she'd felt so weak. However, the woman in a plain dress hadn't killed her. The woman opened her palm, and there was a portrait there. It was of Yi Xian. The woman had left it for her. The woman gazed at the portrait and spoke softly. The person in the portrait is in the 5th dimension? The old man nodded. Yes. As he spoke, he hesitated for a moment before he continued. According to my investigations, this young Master Yi has gathered all 9 scrolls of the Tao scriptures. The Tao scriptures. The woman grinned. Gathering the Tao scriptures. That's quite interesting. The old man spoke in a low voice. Moreover, this young Master Yi has become the Lord of Doubting, and he was personally chosen by Lord Qing. The woman's beautiful brows knit together when she heard this. The old man said, Lord Qing's objective isn't simple at all. The woman said, who destroyed the dark abyss? The old man spoke in a low voice. A woman in a white robe. She headed to the dark abyss and shattered it with a single punch. Her origins and identity can't be found. The woman looked at the old man. Even we can't find anything? The old man nodded. Yes. The woman said softly. From this, it can be seen that there is a huge force behind this young Master Yi. The old man nodded. Yes. Especially young Master Yi's bloodline. His bloodline is extremely special, and its origin is untraceable. After a moment of silence, the woman asked softly, is there any movement from the Tao sect in that place? The old man shook his head. There's no movement. However, they should already be investigating Yi Xian. As he spoke, he hesitated for a moment before he said, "Will the Taoist sect and that place let the matter rest?" The woman shook her head. "I won't." The old man frowned slightly. "Do they still dare to target young Master Yi?" The woman looked at the pool in front of her and said softly, "Why not? Just a white-robed woman, and a swordsman woman won't be able to scare them. As for the plain-dressed woman, I think they probably don't know her true strength." The old man hesitated for a moment before he said, "Should I remind the Gate of Tao in that place?" The woman glanced at the old man. "Do you think they'll believe it?" The old man was silent. The woman chuckled. "Don't talk about them, even we won't believe it." As she spoke, she raised her head to look at the horizon and said softly, "Because she's so strong that it's beyond our understanding." The old man said, "If we become friends with young Master Yi, I'm afraid the Gate of Tao in that place will." The woman recollected her thoughts, stood up and walked into the distance. "We can provide some help and information to young Master Yi. As long as we don't send experts to the fifth dimension to help him, whether it's the Gate of Tao or that place, they won't say anything." The old man nodded. "Understood." The woman said again, "It's not convenient for me to go to the fifth dimension. I'll leave this matter to you." The old man bowed slightly. "Don't worry, City Lord. This old servant will definitely take care of it." As he spoke, he seemed to have thought of something and said, "Some forces might not be that friendly towards young Master Yi." The woman said, "That's their problem." As she spoke, she walked into the distance. "When you go, bring a big gift. Of course, if there's anything he needs help with, try your best to satisfy him. After all, the Gate of Tao and that place haven't started fighting yet. You can help however you want." The old man nodded. "Understood." In the fifth dimension, inside the palace, Yi Xian had been meditating for 3 days. In these 3 days, he didn't even take a step out of his room. He was studying that instant-killing sword. While Yi Xian was meditating, some especially powerful auras appeared in the starry sky of the fifth dimension. This made Bai Dizzy quite worried. He knew that some mysterious forces that even the doubting had never heard of had appeared. Just like the Nanyue family, the complete version of the Tao scripture was too tempting. Which force wouldn't be tempted? More and more mysterious experts came to the fifth dimension. Fortunately, no one dared to act recklessly. The current 5-dimensional universe was still very intimidating. After all, the Dark Abyss had just been destroyed and the whirling world had surrendered. Before figuring out Yi Xian's background, no one dared to act rashly. Inside the Sword Palace, Yu Zun and the rest were still studying the Tao scripture. Unlike before, with the addition of Nian Nian, their progress was godly. A total of 7 Tao scriptures were annotated by them in detail. Not only that, the Tao scriptures, martial arts, and mental cultivation methods were also listed out for people to cultivate. The difficulty of the last 2 Tao scriptures was higher. Even Nian Nian would fall into deep thought because of a single sentence. After all, she hadn't fully recovered her memories. As for Yi Xian, he was cultivating in seclusion. 3 days later, Yi Xian suddenly left his room. He turned into a sword light and disappeared. Not long later, Yi Xian came to a certain starry sky. After confirming that there was no one around, Yi Xian stopped. He opened his palm, and the executing heaven sword appeared in his hand. Yi Xian suddenly looked into the distance. The next moment, thousands of feet away, the space there was torn apart and a sword light appeared. Instant killing sword. A smile appeared on Yi Xian's face when he saw this. Instant killing a swordsman wasn't difficult, but it wasn't easy to cultivate it to Situ Tingyun's level. Speed. This instant kill sword was all about speed and the element of surprise. It was simply too suitable for him. In the following time, Yi Xian started to cultivate instant killing sword like crazy. He wanted to raise the speed of instant killing sword to the limit. Situ Tingyun could kill people 2 levels above her, so could he. Moreover, he had the Tao body and the Naga Dragon clan's power, the Tao law of space, and the sword domain. It could be said that he had a great innate advantage when cultivating instant killing sword. In the fifth dimension, a black-robed old man looked down from the sky. At this moment, a middle-aged man suddenly appeared near the black-robed old man. The middle-aged man glanced at the black-robed old man and smiled. Boundless sacred land. The black-robed old man glanced at the middle-aged man. Tao sect. The middle-aged man smiled. Yes. The black-robed old man retracted his gaze and continued to look down. No one knew what he was thinking. The middle-aged man smiled. This Qingzhu really has a good eye. Changing masters with one move, bringing doubting back to life. The black-robed old man was expressionless. A deathbed struggle. The middle-aged man glanced at the black-robed old man and smiled. That doesn't seem right. Sir, this universe is going to have the power of faith again. The black-robed old man fell silent. The middle-aged man said again, not only did Qingzhu give the Dao seal to Yixian, but he also gave his destiny god seal to him. Sir, are you guys panicking? The black-robed old man glanced at the middle-aged man. Your Dao sect's precious Dao scripture has fallen into someone else's hands. Don't you feel ashamed? The smile on the middle-aged man's face gradually disappeared. The black-robed old man said again, when An Yuan was destroyed, your ancestor didn't even dare to fart. If I were you, I would be too embarrassed to come out and embarrass myself. The middle-aged man laughed. Didn't the boundless sacred ground say that you guys will kill whoever dares to cultivate the power of faith? Look, Yixian is not only cultivating the power of faith, but he is also rebuilding the order and letting the 3,000 Dao guardians cultivate the power of faith. Go kill him now. The black-robed old man looked at the middle-aged man with killing intent in his eyes. The middle-aged man smiled. Sir, it's meaningless for us to fight against each other. How about we talk about cooperation? The black-robed old man was expressionless. What cooperation? The middle-aged man smiled. Both of us want Yixian dead, right? The black-robed old man kept silent. The middle-aged man continued. But for now, we have to deal with the mysterious force behind Yixian first. Both Dao sect and the boundless sacred ground know nothing about the force behind him, right? The black-robed old man didn't say anything. The middle-aged man continued. Yixian has obtained the scripture of Dao. I believe it won't take long for him to understand the 9 volumes of scripture of Dao and summon the spirit of Dao. Once the spirit of Dao appears, it will be very difficult for us to kill him even if the person behind him doesn't show up. What's more, Qingzhu handed the doubting to Yixian. Once the order is built, those who were exiled by you guys might get the power of faith again. The black-robed old man's eyes turned gloomy. The middle-aged man said, now we have to admit that both Dao sect and the boundless sacred ground will not be able to deal with the person behind Yixian alone. But what if we join hands? The black-robed old man glanced at the middle-aged man. You still don't understand the situation. We don't even know what the force behind him is. And the mysterious force that even you and we don't know. Do you know what it means? It means the person behind him might come from a place that we don't even know. The middle-aged man smiled. He said he is the son of the 9-dimensional plane. The black-robed old man sneered. Do you think it's funny? The middle-aged man frowned. The black-robed old man said again. How can you be so sure that what he said is false? Just because we haven't been to the 9-dimensional plane, we think there is no 9-dimensional plane, right? As he said, he raised his head and looked deep into the starry sky. He said softly, what if he is really the son of the 9-dimensional plane? The middle-aged man looked at the black-robed old man. So the boundless sacred ground is going to give up? The black-robed old man glanced at the middle-aged man. We just don't want to underestimate him. Of course, if the force behind him is too powerful, we have to give up. After that, he turned around and left. Chapter 1444. In the starry sky, the middle-aged man was silent. At this moment, a voice came from behind him. They will not let Yixian live. The middle-aged man turned around. When he saw who it was, he quickly bowed respectfully. Court head. Taoism was divided into Wuyuan court and Wenyuan court. The person in front of him was the court head of Wenyuan court, Wen Tianyu. Wen Tianyu nodded slightly. No need to be so polite. The middle-aged man hesitated and said, Court head Wen, the boundless sacred land. Wen Tianyu smiled and said, the boundless sacred land cultivates the power of faith. The power of faith is their foundation. The doubting also cultivates the power of faith. There is an irreconcilable conflict between them and the doubting. The middle-aged man asked softly, why? Wen Tianyu smiled and said, the doubting's power of faith is to establish order for all living beings, to create peace and make the world a better place. The reason why the doubting was so powerful was that their power of faith was very pure. Moreover, it was the voluntary belief of the people in the world. But the boundless sacred land is different. Their power of faith is based on brainwashing and slavery. The boundless sacred land has hundreds of countries. Each country is their slave. Their power of faith is based on brainwashing and deception. Then he shook his head and smiled. The boundless sacred land is afraid. Wen Tianyu said in a deep voice, why did the doubting lose? Wen Tianyu smiled and said, because the doubting has affected the interests of some people. The middle-aged man asked, who? Wen Tianyu smiled and said, us. The middle-aged man was stunned. Wen Tianyu looked down and said softly, they establish order with the 3,000 Great Tao. The core of the 3,000 Great Tao is the Tao Scripture and the Tao Spirit. They want to awaken the Tao Spirit. We Taoism will not let them awaken the Tao Spirit. The middle-aged man hesitated and did not ask. It was better not to know some secrets. Wen Tianyu said softly, it is not that we have to be enemies with Yi Xian, but his rise will seriously threaten our interests and even overthrow us. So we have no choice. The middle-aged man said in a deep voice, the force behind Yi Xian. Wen Tianyu looked down and said softly, if it's just those two women, it's actually not that big of a problem. I'm just afraid that there's someone even more powerful than those two women behind him. Although this possibility is very small, it's not impossible. There was no hope. Otherwise, at this point he didn't continue. On the other side, in the starry sky, Yi Xian opened his palm, and the executing heaven sword fell into his hand. At this time he had trained his instant kill swordsman skill to the extreme. Although he was only in the Tao defense realm, he was confident that he could kill a consolidation realm expert with a single strike. Of course, that was under the condition that he caught his opponent off guard. The key to this instant kill was to catch his opponent off guard. As if a thought had crossed his mind, Yi Xian opened his palm, revealing a storage ring in his hand. This was given to him by the white-robed Qing'er before he left. There was no treasure in the storage ring, but rather a map. It was a map of an unknown place. After looking at the map for a moment, Yi Xian said softly, looks like I have to find some time to go there. Since this was left to him by the white-robed Qing'er, this place would definitely be of great help to him. At this time, Bai Dizzy suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian put away the map and looked at Bai Dizzy. Bai Dizzy said in a deep voice, people from Xian City have come. Xian City. Yi Xian frowned slightly. What kind of force is it? Bai Dizzy shook his head. I don't know. However, I've already investigated. What I know is that not only Xian City, but some mysterious forces have also come to our fifth dimension. Some people have already shown themselves, but there are still many people hiding in the dark. Yi Xian said softly, they should all be here for the Tao scripture. Bai Dizzy nodded. I made a decision on my own. Yi Xian asked with a smile, what is it? Bai Dizzy said, I have already asked all the experts from the Tao Returning College, Xuanji sect, Xiao clan and Xuanhuan sect to come to the fifth dimension. Currently, we have 46 Consolidation Realm experts, 760 Tao Attainment Realm experts, and thousands of Tao Controlling Realm experts. Yi Xian asked, all of them are here? Bai Dizzy nodded. Almost all of them are here. After all, there is a complete version of the Tao scripture here. Who wouldn't want to come? At this point he seemed to have thought of something and said, there is one thing I have to tell you. Yi Xian said, speak. Bai Dizzy said in a deep voice, the reason why the doubting Qingzhu and the others suddenly disappeared was not because they disappeared on their own, but because the doubting encountered a strong enemy. However, the doubting has no records of these past events. Even I don't know much. Now we need to rebuild order. I am worried. Yi Xian said softly. You are worried that the forces that caused the doubting experts to disappear will not accept us. Bai Dizzy nodded. Yes. Yi Xian was silent. Bai Dizzy said in a deep voice. I think you can meet some hidden forces. If you can befriend them, it will be very beneficial for us. Yi Xian nodded. I understand. Bai Dizzy was about to speak. At this moment, the space in front of him trembled. Bai Dizzy looked up at Yi Xian. Miss Guanyin said that the people of Xian City are waiting for you. Xian City. Yi Xian said with a smile. Come, let's go meet them. Bai Dizzy nodded. The two left. Dao City Sword Hall. As soon as Yi Xian entered the hall, an old man immediately stood up. The old man cupped his fist towards Yi Xian and said with a smile, Young Master Yi, I am Xian City's Zhao Yan, a butler of Xian City's city lord. Butler. Yi Xian glanced at Zhao Yan. This Zhao Yan's strength was at least at the peak of consolidation realm. This kind of expert was only a butler. Yi Xian said with a smile, Senior Zhao, please sit. Zhao Yan said with a smile, Young Master Yi, please sit. Yi Xian smiled, Senior, please sit. Zhao Yan hurriedly shook his head. Young Master Yi, please sit. Yi Xian blinked and said with a smile, Senior, then let's be casual. What do you think? Zhao Yan said with a smile. Just what I want. The two sat down. Yi Xian looked at Zhao Yan. Senior, did you come to my fifth dimension for the Tao scripture? Zhao Yan shook his head. No, we came to the fifth dimension this time just to get to know young Master Yi. Yi Xian looked at Zhao Yan. Not for the Tao scripture? Zhao Yan said with a smile. Indeed, not for the Tao scripture. To be honest, my Xian City's city lord wanted to personally come here to get to know young Master Yi, but now is a special time. If she comes to the fifth dimension, it might be a little disadvantageous to young Master Yi, so she asked me to come see young Master Yi. To put it simply, my Xian City wants to be friends with young Master Yi. Yi Xian said with a smile. Senior, what you said makes me a little confused. Can you be more frank? Zhao Yan hesitated for a moment, then said, Young Master Yi, I have already been very frank. Yi Xian looked at Zhao Yan. Xian City wants to be friends with me? Zhao Yan nodded. Yi Xian suddenly asked, Has Qing been to your place? Qing. Zhao Yan was stunned. Who? Yi Xian said, A woman in a plain dress. Hearing this, Zhao Yan immediately stood up. He hesitated for a moment, then said, So it's that senior? Yi Xian nodded, Yes. Zhao Yan said with a bitter smile. Young Master Yi guessed correctly, that senior has indeed been to our Xian City. Yi Xian was silent. He didn't expect that his guess would really be correct. Qing, has really been to Xian City. Needless to say, the reason these fellows came to the fifth dimension to be friends with me is definitely because of Qing. Yi Xian withdrew his thoughts and looked at Zhao Yan. Senior, did anything unpleasant happen between you and Qing? Zhao Yan hurriedly said. There was a little in the beginning, but it was a misunderstanding. We have already cleared up the misunderstanding. Yi Xian. Zhao Yan suddenly took out a spatial ring and placed it in front of Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, this is a small token of my Xian City. Please accept it, young Master Yi. Yi Xian glanced at the spatial ring, and his expression changed. There were a total of 50 million divine fortune crystals in the spatial ring. Not only that, there were also some medicinal pills, and there was no need to look at them to know that they were extremely precious. Yi Xian didn't accept the spatial ring. He looked at Zhao Yan. Senior, there is no such thing as an undeserved reward. I cannot accept this gift. Zhao Yan was stunned. He didn't expect that Yi Xian would actually refuse. Zhao Yan said, Young Master Yi, this is a small token of my appreciation, young Master Yi. Yi Xian smiled. Senior, this is not a small token of my appreciation. This is a very big gift. Xian City wants to be on good terms with me, Yi Xian, and I am naturally more than happy to do so. As for this gift, please accept it, Senior. Also, please tell your castellan that I, Yi Xian, will visit another day. Xian City's goodwill was because of Qing. He was very clear on this point. He was naturally happy that Qing helped him, but he wouldn't use Qing's power to do whatever he wanted. Zhao Yan wanted to say something, but Yi Xian suddenly looked at Bai Dizzy. Bai Di Xingjun, help me get a copy of the Taoist scriptures and annotations copied by Jiming and the others. Bai Di Xingjun glanced at Yi Xian, then turned and left. Soon he reappeared in the hall, holding an ancient scroll in his hand. Yi Xian took the scroll and handed it to Zhao Yan, smiling. This is the contents and annotations of the first 7 Taoist scriptures. Today, I will give them to Xian City. This is equivalent to making a good karma. Zhao Yan smiled bitterly. Young Master Yi, you didn't accept my gift, but still gave me such a precious thing. This old man doesn't dare to accept it. Yi Xian smiled. Take it back to the castellan of Xian City, and tell her that I, Yi Xian, have received her kindness. Also, I am very willing to be friends with Xian City. Zhao Yan hesitated, then said, I will. Yi Xian nodded. After Zhao Yan left with the scroll, Bai Dizzy looked at Yi Xian. I suddenly thought of something. Yi Xian was a little curious. What is it? Bai Dizzy said, I sent someone to kill the plain-dressed girl. As he spoke, he suddenly slapped himself. I'm 2F** king stupid. Yi Xian. P.S. I have a dream recently. I dreamed that many people rushed to vote for me. I didn't want them, but they still voted for me. Then I became the first in the monthly votes. And it was more than 10 times more than the second place. And I have been on the list for more than 10 months. Chapter 1445. Within the hall, Bai Dizzy sighed softly, and he had extremely complicated feelings in his heart. What sort of power was Dark City? He didn't know. But could a power that could casually take out tens of millions of divine fortune crystals as a gift be a small power? Moreover, such a formidable power had expressed goodwill to the 5th dimension, just because of a woman in a plain dress. It could even be said to be slightly lowly. There was no need to think about it to know that the woman in a plain dress was absolutely formidable to the point of causing Dark City to feel despair. Moreover, he'd even sent people to kill her. When he thought up to here, he couldn't help but want to slap himself a few more times. How could I have been so stupid all those years ago? Yi Xian suddenly said. The important matter at hand is to figure out how many powers we don't know about, and we must figure out the ins and outs of these powers. Bai Dizzy nodded. Yes. When he spoke up to here, he gazed at Yi Xian. Why didn't you ask Zhao Yan? Yi Xian smiled. He'll come back. Bai Dizzy was slightly stunned, and then he took a deep glance at Yi Xian. Brilliant. Yi Xian smiled and said, I'll go see how their study of the Taoist scripture is going. As soon as he finished speaking, he left the hall. Dark City. Zhao Yan stood respectfully in a garden somewhere, and a woman was playing chess not too far away from him. She had no opponent, and was playing by herself. A short moment later, the woman spoke softly. He didn't accept the gift and even gave you the contents of the Taoist scripture? Zhao Yan nodded. Yes. The woman chuckled. Interesting. Zhao Yan hesitated for a moment and asked, what does he mean by that? The woman smiled. He means that he doesn't want to bully us. Zhao Yan came to an understanding when he heard this. To put it bluntly, they definitely made friends with Yi Xian because of the woman in a plain dress, and it was the same for the gift. Moreover, Yi Xian's actions were telling them that he, Yi Xian, wouldn't bully others. When he thought up to here, Zhao Yan couldn't help but have a good impression of Yi Xian. The woman suddenly put down the chess piece in her hand. She stood up and said with a smile, You go again. You don't need to bring any gifts. Zhao Yan said softly, Just like that. The woman nodded. What he needs the most right now isn't worldly possessions, but an understanding of the various forces. Send him a copy of the detailed information of all the forces. Zhao Yan hesitated for a moment, and then he said, Taoism and the boundless Holy Land? The woman smiled and said, Even if we don't send him off, he will find out soon enough. Zhao Yan nodded. Understood. He paused for a moment before continuing. Our people are still investigating the people behind young Master Yi. Should we continue investigating? The woman shook her head. No need. Zhao Yan bowed respectfully, and was about to leave. Meanwhile, the woman said, Young Master Yi is at the Tao control realm now? Zhao Yan nodded. Yes. However, his aura is thick and vigorous. His battle prowess probably far surpasses that of ordinary Tao attainment realm cultivators. After a moment of silence, the woman suddenly said, Although he has the Tao scripture, I'm afraid he still has some problems on how to reach the Tao. Zhao Yan hurriedly said, I understand. Obviously, the city lord wanted to help Yi Xian reach the Tao attainment realm. After a moment, Zhao Yan left. In the garden, the woman slowly closed her eyes and chuckled. This might be the best chance for my Xian city to rise. Because besides her, there was no one outside right now. She knew how powerful the woman in a plain dress was. While everyone was thinking about how to scheme against Yi Xian, Xian city was secretly helping Yi Xian and establishing a friendly relationship. She didn't ask for any other benefits. In the future, a single word of advice from the woman in a plain dress would be enough to change the fate of an expert of her level. In the five-dimensional universe, in the Sword Hall, everyone was surrounding Nian Nian. Nian Nian was reading the 8th Tao scripture. She was reading it very carefully and would think from time to time. While she was thinking, no one dared to breathe loudly for fear of disturbing Nian Nian. At this moment, Yi Jiming suddenly walked to Yi Xian's side. She glanced at Nian Nian, who was thinking in the distance, and said softly, Is she going to recover her memory? Yi Xian shook his head. I don't know. Yi Jiming said in a deep voice. I feel that she is a little different from before. Yi Xian nodded. He looked at Nian Nian in the distance seriously. The current Nian Nian was indeed a little different from before. But his intuition told him that Nian Nian might not recover her memory so easily. If she deliberately lost her memory, then there must be a deeper meaning. At this moment, Yi Jiming suddenly said, We have recorded the 1st to 7th Tao scripture martial arts and excitement in detail. As she said that, she opened her palm and a scroll appeared in front of Yi Xian. This is the 7th Tao scripture martial arts and Tao scripture mental cultivation method. Yi Xian opened the scroll and 3 large words appeared in front of him. Fentianju. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Fentianju? Yi Jiming nodded. This is a palm technique. Its power is far above Tao fist. One palm burning the heavens. If paired with this Tao scripture mental cultivation method, its power can really destroy heaven and earth. Especially its power. It has a fatal restraining effect on the origin of the world. As she said that, she looked at Yi Xian. This palm is very special. It is specially used to destroy the world. If you cultivate it, you must use it carefully. Yi Xian opened the scroll and took a look. A moment later, his expression gradually became solemn. The power of this Fun Tianju slightly exceeded his expectations. Just as Yi Jiming said, the lethality of this Tao scripture martial arts was too terrifying. If it was used in the 5th dimension, the 5th dimension might not be able to withstand it. Because this Tao scripture martial arts naturally countered the origin of the world. Once it was used, the origin of the 5th dimension would definitely die. As if thinking of something, Yi Xian looked at Nian Nian and the others in the distance. Have the 8th and 9th Tao scripture martial arts come out? Yi Jiming shook her head. Not yet. However, there is some progress on the 8th Tao scripture martial arts. Yi Xian softly said, The 8th Tao scripture martial arts is probably even more terrifying than the 9th Tao scripture martial arts. Yi Jiming nodded. Yes. As she said that, she hesitated for a moment before continuing. The Whirling Sect. Yi Xian smiled. Are you trying to say that the Whirling Sect knows everything about the Tao scripture? Yi Jiming nodded. Yi Xian lightly smiled. They gave me the 9th Tao scripture martial arts. I still have to give them this bit of benefit, otherwise, I would be too much of a scum. Yi Jiming nodded. Good. One more thing, the Tao scripture martial arts and Tao scripture mental cultivation methods that we have recorded. Are we going to give them to the experts of the 5th dimension to cultivate? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. However, we can't give them to them casually. Especially the Tao scripture martial arts and mental cultivation methods. We can make them into a reward, so that everyone has a goal to pursue. If they get it too easily, they won't cherish it. Yi Jiming smiled. You are really too generous. Yi Xian shook his head. This is what I originally promised them. Yi Jiming nodded. Good. Yi Xian glanced at Nian Nian and the others in the distance. Then he said, I will go and cultivate this Tao scripture martial arts first. If anything happens, call me at any time. After saying that, he turned around and left. Not far away, Venerable Yu looked at the departing Yi Xian in silence. In fact, she was a little afraid. Afraid that Yi Xian wouldn't let the whirling sect study this Tao scripture. After all, the Tao scripture martial arts and mental cultivation methods in this Tao scripture were too precious. However, she didn't expect that Yi Xian still wouldn't let them leave. It was very obvious that Yi Xian was really willing to share all the Tao scriptures with the whirling sect. Thinking of this, Venerable Yu shook her head and smiled. At the beginning, she felt that giving the last Tao scripture to Yi Xian for free was not worth it. However, now it seemed that this was simply too profitable. The whirling world only gave away one Tao scripture, but they obtained 8 Tao scriptures. At this moment, she suddenly felt that the whirling world's forces and in Yuan were too stupid. In fact, Yi Xian didn't care too much about the Tao scripture. If they wanted the Tao scripture, they could totally cooperate with him. After interacting with Yi Xian, she realized that Yi Xian was actually a very easy person to talk to. If he was so easy to talk to, why did so many people still bully him? Venerable Yu shook her head. She couldn't understand. Somewhere in the starry sky, Yi Xian scanned his surroundings. This was a dead star field without any signs of life. This place was the most suitable for cultivation. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the 7th Tao scripture martial art appeared in his hand. Burning heaven extinction. Yi Xian took a deep breath and opened his palm. Soon, a mysterious force suddenly appeared around him. The 7th Tao scripture mental cultivation method. Every Tao scripture martial art had to be paired with a mental cultivation method in order to unleash its true power. Therefore, he first cultivated the 7th mental cultivation method. Mental cultivation methods were easy to learn. In a short while, Yi Xian had mastered the Tao scripture mental cultivation method. Next, he began to cultivate burning heaven extinction. Yi Xian sat cross-legged in the starry sky. The starry sky around him was dead silent. After sitting quietly like this for an unknown period of time, Yi Xian suddenly opened his right hand. His palm was like a piece of magma. It was dark red. Soon, a powerful force appeared around him, and the starry sky around him began to tremble. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly stood up slowly. He frowned and his right hand trembled violently. At this moment, he felt that his right hand was like a volcano. That force was too violent. Not only that, he felt as if his right hand was burning. Yi Xian's expression became somewhat solemn. He realized that he had underestimated this burning heaven extinction. From the beginning, he knew that this burning heaven extinction's force was overbearing and ordinary people couldn't withstand it. However, he had a Tao physique. Moreover, it was an upgraded Tao physique. But at this moment, he realized that it was still not enough. The 7th Tao scripture martial art was too overbearing. He had to suppress it. Otherwise, this force would cripple him. Yi Xian began to use his own force to suppress it. However, he realized that it was useless. Moreover, the more he suppressed it with his sword Tao, the more powerful the violent force became. Soon Yi Xian's right hand began to crack. Seeing this scene, Yi Xian's expression changed greatly. He didn't think too much and hurriedly activated his bloodline power. Soon, countless amounts of blood in his body converged towards his right hand. When the blood converged on his right hand, boom! In his right hand, the overbearing force immediately quieted down. It became obedient. Yi Xian. Chapter 1446. In the starry sky, Yi Xian was stunned. He really did not expect his bloodline power to be able to suppress this violent power. It seemed that his bloodline had many functions. Yi Xian collected his thoughts and continued to cultivate absolute Fentian. Since he could use his bloodline to suppress it, it meant that he could control the power of absolute Fentian. If that was the case, it would be much easier. Boundless Sacred Land. Boundless Sacred Land was located in Boundless Star Region. This star region was a bit special because it was different from other places. This place cultivated the power of faith. In Boundless Sacred Land, there were hundreds of super empires. These hundreds of super empires were all subsidiary countries of the Sacred Land. Faith in the Sacred Land. What was different from doubting was that the faith here was completely enslaved. From birth, people were instilled to believe in the Sacred Land, and to go through fire and water for the sacred land. Here, the sacred land was God, an inviolable God. On this day, a man came to Boundless Star region. This person was the head of the Taoist faction, Wen Tianyu. Just as Wen Tianyu stepped into Boundless Star region, a golden light suddenly appeared in front of him. The golden light dissipated, and an old man wearing a golden robe appeared in front of Wen Tianyu. Wen Tianyu smiled and said, "Master Baixio, long time no see. How have you been?" Master Baixio slightly bowed. "Head Wen, long time no see. Compared to back then, you have become even stronger." Wen Tianyu shook his head and smiled. "Master must be joking." Master Baixio looked at Wen Tianyu. "Are you here for the fifth dimension's Yixian?" Wen Tianyu nodded. Master Baixio shook his head. "This matter is not something that you and I can decide." Wen Tianyu smiled and said, "I represent the Taoist faction." Master Baixio glanced at Wen Tianyu. "The Taoist faction's 4 sages, do you represent 4? Wen Tianyu was silent. Master Baixio smiled and said, "It seems that Head Wen only represents the Taoist faction's Earth Gate." The Taoist faction's 4 sages had their own legacies. They were Heaven Gate, Earth Gate, Xian Gate, and Human Gate. Among them, Second Elder Tao was the Earth Gate's ancestor. Wen Tianyu smiled. "Even if I only represent Earth's Gate, isn't that enough?" Master Baixio shook his head. Court Head Wen, the white-robed woman shattered the dark abyss with a single punch. A consolidation realm expert is like an ant in front of her. Moreover, we still don't know how strong she is. Do you think it's enough? Wen Tianyu shook his head and smiled. Since that's the case, then the Holy Land can just wait. Wait for the rise of this young Master Yi. After saying this, he turned around and left. After taking 2 steps, he suddenly stopped and turned around to look at Master Baixio. "Master, you should really go to the 5th dimension to take a look at the power of faith there. I believe that Master will definitely be very surprised." Furthermore, Yi Xian was personally chosen by Master Qing. He would definitely save that Master Qing in the future. At that time, what would the Holy Lands do? Surrender? Haha. With that, he turned around and left. The Master of Baisu was silent. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded above Wen Tianyu's head. "Where's second brother Dao?" Hearing this, the Master of Cultivation's expression changed, and he hurriedly bowed respectfully. This was because the person who spoke was the Holy Land's holy leader. Wen Tianyu also bowed slightly. Towards this mysterious holy leader, he did not dare to show the slightest bit of disrespect. Wen Tianyu was about to speak, but at this moment, a shadow suddenly appeared in the sky behind him. Second brother Dao. Following the appearance of second brother Dao, a middle-aged man wearing a white robe appeared above the Master of Baisu. Holy leader. Both of them had appeared. The holy leader looked at second brother Dao. "You've seen that woman?" Second brother Dao nodded. The holy leader asked, "What realm?" Second brother Dao shook his head. "I don't know." The holy leader frowned. "I don't know?" Second brother Dao nodded. The holy leader's expression was calm. No one knew what he was thinking. Second brother Dao looked at the holy leader. "The price of killing these 2 people is too great. If we don't kill them, the price will be even greater." The holy leader was expressionless. "If we don't kill them, what's the price?" Second brother Dao smiled. "First, let's talk about the price of my Dao faction. He has already obtained the 9 scrolls of Dao scriptures. Once he comprehends the 9 scrolls of Dao scriptures, his strength will undergo an earth-shattering change. Most importantly, it is very likely that he will awaken the spirit of Dao and become the master of our Dao faction." As he spoke, he shook his head and smiled. "If he is personally chosen by Master, I have nothing to say. However, he is not. Moreover, the people behind him are all Dao-defiant cultivators. It is obvious that he is not on the same path as our Dao faction. Therefore, we will not let him become the master of our Dao faction. Moreover, we will not let him grasp the spirit of Dao." The holy leader looked at second brother Dao. "You? 2 or 3? Or 4? Second brother Dao smiled. "Fourth junior brother and I have reached a consensus. As for third junior sister, she has been wandering outside all year round. We do not know where she is now. As for eldest senior brother, he has become obsessed with that Dao faction. He basically does not care about anything. Therefore, fourth junior brother and I are in charge of the Dao faction now. The holy leader said softly. Tell us about our sacred ground's loss. Second brother Dao laughed. Holy leader, why do you ask when you already know the answer? The holy leader looked at second brother. I want to hear it. Second brother Dao looked straight at the holy leader. He will subvert the sacred ground's power of faith. Am I right? The holy leader was silent. Second brother Dao continued. Moreover, he is the person chosen by Master Qing. Holy leader, do you dare to let Master Qing and her great Dao guardians come out? I think you definitely do not dare. Back then, Master Qing almost subverted your boundless sacred ground. Now there is another Yi Xian. The holy leader said softly, second brother Dao, Yi Xian is not like Master Qing. We will have to pay a huge price to deal with two women who are not in the same realm. Most importantly, we do not know how many people are behind him. Second brother Dao said softly. Currently, we know that the white-robed woman, Situ Tingyuan, the netherworld hall in the four-dimensional universe, and a woman in a plain dress who is his Dao guardian. These people had once appeared to help him. The holy leader said, who is the easiest to kill? Second brother Dao said after a moment of silence. It might be that woman in a plain dress. The holy leader asked, why do you think so? Second brother Dao said, I have investigated this person. Her true strength has always been a mystery. However, the fifth dimension's Tendo Munyanyan said that she has a 50% chance of defeating the woman in a plain dress. Moreover, she said this more than once. The holy leader frowned. 50% chance? Second brother Dao nodded. The fifth dimension's Tendo has said more than once that she has a 50% chance of defeating the woman in a plain dress. An expert of her level should not speak carelessly. Moreover, this time, when the fifth dimension and Yi Xian are in danger, this woman in a plain dress did not appear. Why did she not appear? There are two possibilities. The first is that she does not know that the fifth dimension and Yi Xian are in danger. However, this possibility is extremely small. The second possibility is that her strength is not enough to deal with the crisis of the fifth dimension and Yi Xian. Therefore, she does not dare to come. Based on this, among the people behind Yi Xian, this woman in a plain dress is the easiest to kill. The holy leader was silent. Second brother Dao continued. There is one more thing. Previously, I asked the doubting Taoist ancestor to search for this woman in a plain dress. Although the Taoist ancestor is dead, before he died, he told me that the woman in a plain dress is not that strong. In other words, it is very likely that he died after fighting with the woman in a plain dress. If this is the case, then it is as he said. The woman in a plain dress is not that strong. The holy leader looked at second brother Dao. You want to attack the woman in a plain dress first? Second brother Dao nodded. The best way to deal with these women is to kill them one by one. The holy leader frowned. Kill them one by one? Second brother Dao smiled. If we gather the strength of my Dao sect in your holy land, wouldn't it be much easier to kill one of them? The holy leader said softly, that is possible. Dao elder second brother Dao said, then let's start with the weakest one. I have already sent someone to investigate the woman in a plain dress. If we find out where she is, we will deal with her first before killing the white-robed woman and Situ Tingyuan. The holy leader glanced at second brother. Don't forget about Yi Xian. He is a genius and has mastered the 9 Dao scriptures. If he is given enough time. Second brother Dao nodded. Don't worry. I won't let him have it easy. As he spoke, he looked at the holy leader and smiled. Do you know that Yi Xian has a greatest weakness? The holy leader asked. What weakness? Second brother Dao smiled. His younger sister Yi Ling. The holy leader frowned. His younger sister? Second brother Dao nodded. I have sent someone to Qingqing to investigate. This person has a deep relationship with his younger sister, Yi Ling. It can be said that for Yi Ling, Yi Xian will not hesitate to die. The holy leader narrowed his eyes. You want to kill his younger sister? Second brother Dao said. I have already sent someone to look for Yi Ling. She has appeared in the Heavenly Oblivion starfield. My people have already gone to the Heavenly Oblivion starfield. They should be able to find her soon. If we can capture this person, even if we can't force Yi Xian to die, we can force him to hand over all the Tao scriptures. The holy leader glanced at second brother. I think you should investigate his younger sister. My intuition tells me that she is not a simple person. Second brother Dao smiled. Of course. As a precaution, I have sent 5 Consolidation Realm experts. Moreover, I have spoken to the Qi tribe in the Heavenly Oblivion starfield. They are willing to help and have sent 6 Consolidation Realm experts. The holy leader nodded slightly. Then it should be foolproof. A moment later, second brother Dao left. After the second Dao brother left, the Saint Master turned around and left. He came to a mountain, and in the depths of the mountain, there was a small bamboo house. In front of the bamboo house, there was a garden with all sorts of flowers. It was extremely beautiful. Amidst the flowering shrubs, a woman was watering the flowers with a kettle. The holy leader came to the side of the garden and bowed respectfully to the woman not far away. Master. The woman put down the kettle. She gently sniffed a beautiful flower in front of her and then smiled. Has the Taoist faction started? The holy leader nodded. Second brother Dao wants to kill the woman in the plain dress, and sister Yi Xian first. The woman stopped and turned to look at the holy leader. She blinked. Kill the woman in the plain dress first? The holy leader nodded. Yes, he speculated that the woman in the plain dress is the weakest. The woman suddenly shook her head and smiled. The holy leader hesitated and then said, Is that not the case? The woman gently plucked a flower and smiled. Do you know who the woman in the plain dress is? The holy leader shook his head. I don't. The woman looked up into the sky, and the smile on her face gradually vanished. The woman in the plain dress is called Tianming. Over 100,000 years ago, she was already invincible in the world with her sword. As for Yi Xian's sister, the soul within her body is probably the soul of the Void Spirit clan's patriarch, Tian Xiu, from over 100,000 years ago. He was killed by Tianming all those years ago, but that man defied the heavens and changed his fate. Even though she isn't at her peak right now, she isn't someone that just anyone can deal with. As she spoke, she walked towards the small bamboo house in the distance. The white-robed woman that appeared earlier is called Butcher. She cultivates both the fist and the sword, and she's one of Tianming's clones. She's evenly matched against anyone with her 3 strikes of the sword. As for Situ Tingyan, that little girl's growth is the fastest apart from that man. Very few are a match for her with her 3 strikes of the sword. Besides that, those women from the netherworld. When she spoke up to this point, she'd already walked over to the bamboo door. She pushed it open and smiled lightly. If you want to kill Yi Xian, you can't target the people behind him. Because every single one of them is stronger than the last, and they're strong to the point of despair. If you want to kill him, you have to make use of the disaster cause he possesses. So you have to take it slow. PS tickets. Chapter 1447. Yi Xian stood silently amidst a deathly silent expanse of the starry sky. At this moment, his right hand was like a piece of burning red iron, and it was an extremely shocking sight. Absolute skyfun. A palm incinerates the heavens. Yi Xian's body gradually started to tremble, and the formidable energy caused his body to be slightly unable to support it. After an unknown period of time, Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes, and then he suddenly slapped his palm forward. As soon as his palm descended, the space before him started to be obliterated inch by inch, and it was extremely swift. In the blink of an eye, it had spread to a distance of 3 kilometers. In practically an instant, the starry sky around Yi Xian had been completely obliterated. On the other hand, Yi Xian seemed as if he'd collapsed from exhaustion, and he almost collapsed to the ground, powerless. At this moment, Yi Xian felt as if all the strength in his body had been sucked out, and he was as weak as an old man. Moreover, his countenance was extremely pale. Yi Xian sat cross-legged in the starry sky for around an hour before his countenance gradually turned for the better, and his body slowly recovered as well. After a long time, Yi Xian took a deep breath and stood up. At this moment, his body was almost fully recovered. Yi Xian glanced at his right hand, grinned, and then turned around and left. As soon as he returned to Dao City, Bai Dizzy appeared before Yi Xian. Bai Dizzy gazed at Yi Xian. Dark City's Zhao Yan is here again. Yi Xian nodded. I'll go see him. As soon as he finished speaking, he arrived at Sword Hall. As soon as he arrived, Zhao Yan hurriedly stood up and cupped his fists. Young Master Yi. Yi Xian smiled. Senior, you wouldn't be here to give me a gift again, right? Zhao Yan spoke in a low voice. Young Master Yi. According to what we know, the Dao faction might be targeting young Master Ye's younger sister. Yi Xian was astounded. Targeting my younger sister? Yi Ling? Zhao Yan nodded. Young Master Yi, your sister Yi Ling once appeared in the Sky Oblivion Planet Zone, which is the territory of the Qi clan. The Qi clan has a close relationship with the Dao sect. Your sister? Yi Xian suddenly interrupted Zhao Yan's words. Senior, are you saying that the Dao Gate is going to make a move against me? Why? Zhao Yan looked at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, could it be that you don't know that the first Abyss Master of the Dark Abyss was one of the 4 saints of the Daoist sect? Yi Xian said solemnly, I really don't know. At this moment, he realized that he knew too little about the powers outside. Zhao Yan smiled bitterly and said, I was negligent. Young Master Yi, this Dark Abyss was created by Second Elder Dao, and Second Elder Dao is one of the 4 saints of the Dao sect. The Dao scriptures in young Master Ye's hands also originate from this Dao sect. Yi Xian said softly, I see. In other words, this gate has already started to target me. Zhao Yan nodded. Yes. Young Master Yi, your sister. Yi Xian smiled and said, if they want to look for my sister, then let them. Zhao Yan said in shock, Young Master Yi, they have sent several Consolidation Realm experts you. Yi Xian smiled and said, it's fine, let them go. Look for Yi Ling? When he heard this news, he didn't panic at all. He even wanted to laugh. What kind of existence was the senior in Yi Ling's body? That was definitely not weaker than the white-robed Qing heir. Looking for Ling, wasn't that the same as courting death? Zhao Yan glanced at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, aren't you worried? Yi Xian smiled and said, I'm not worried. Let them look for her. The more people go, the better. Zhao Yan's expression became a little strange. At this time, Yi Xian suddenly said, Senior Zhao, I want to know about the forces outside. I wonder if Senior can help me with this. Zhao Yan smiled and said, of course. As if thinking of something, he said, Young Master Yi, I wonder if you have any plans to break through to the Dao realm? Yi Xian blinked. Can you help me? Zhao Yan smiled and said, to be honest, I came here for this matter. If Young Master Yi wants to break through to the Dao realm, we can help Young Master Yi. Yi Xian cupped his fists and said seriously, thank you. Right now, his greatest weakness was his realm. His current realm was a little too low. Zhao Yan looked outside. Come in. As the voice fell, 4 old men walked into the hall. All 4 of them were at the peak of the consolidation realm. Zhao Yan took out more than 100 white jade bottles and placed them in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian was a little puzzled. These are? Zhao Yan said with a smile. Medicinal pills. These are my Profound City's top medicinal pills. In the outside world, any bottle can sell for at least several million fortune divine crystals. Hearing this, Yi Xian was dumbfounded. A bottle can sell for several million fortune divine crystals. At this moment, he felt that poverty had limited his imagination. He had many top-grade fortune or veins that could produce tens of millions of fortune divine crystals in a year. In his opinion, he, Yi Xian, should be super rich. But at this moment, he realized that he was still too poor in front of these ancient forces. At this time, Zhao Yan said, these medicinal pills can help people reach the Dao realm. Every bottle contains extremely pure energy. Even if you want to buy them in the outside world, you basically can't buy them. Even if you sell them, they can be sold for sky-high prices. As he said this, he looked at Yi Xian and said with a smile, Young Master Yi, let's begin. Yi Xian smiled bitterly. I can't afford them. Zhao Yan was stunned, and then he smiled and said, "These medicinal pills are a gift from my profound city to young Master Yi." Yi Xian was about to speak when Zhao Yan added, "The value of the scripture young Master Yi gave me is far greater than these medicinal pills. Young Master Yi, there's no need to be courteous. If you continue to be courteous, I wouldn't know what to do." Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then he smiled. "Then I won't be unreasonable." Zhao Yan smiled, and then he passed a bottle of medicinal pills to Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, take this pill first." Yi Xian nodded. He opened the jade bottle. There was an elixir the size of a thumb in the jade bottle. He poured the elixir into his mouth. As soon as the elixir entered his stomach, a wave of extremely pure energy spread from his body. At this moment, he felt warm all over and very comfortable. At this moment, Zhao Yan suddenly said, "Young Master Yi, calm your qi and focus. I'll help you break through to the Dao control realm later. During this period, young Master Yi, please don't let your thoughts run wild." Yi Xian nodded, and then he sat down cross-legged and calmed his qi and focused. He was currently at the Dao control realm, and if he reached the Dao attainment realm, he would be able to easily kill a consolidation realm expert without using the insta-kill sword. And if he used the insta-kill sword, just thinking about it made him excited. Just like that, Zhao Yan and the others began to help Yi Xian break through to the Dao attainment realm. In the Dao tomb, in a certain hall, the Lord looked at the scroll in his hand in silence. The scroll in his hand contained the contents and annotations of the first 7 scriptures, and it was very detailed. As for the 8th and 9th scrolls, even Yi Xian himself hadn't studied them, so no one knew the contents of the 8th and 9th scrolls. Luoho suddenly said, "I never expected that he would really give them to us." The Lord looked at Luoho and smiled. "I feel like I'm dreaming as well." Qing Yaoyao smiled. "Actually, he doesn't care about the scriptures at all. It's us who care too much." The Lord looked at Qing Yaoyao and smiled. "Indeed. Fortunately, we chose to stand on his side. Otherwise, the Dao tomb would have probably vanished completely by now." Everyone fell silent. With the white-robed woman's strength, she could probably destroy the Dao tomb with just a sneeze. Meanwhile, Bitter King suddenly said, "Don't we still have the 8th and 9th scrolls?" Everyone looked at Bitter King. Bitter King was slightly puzzled. "What's wrong?" The Lord smiled. "We can't be too greedy. Even if he gives us the 8th and 9th scrolls, we wouldn't dare to take them. Because giving them to us is equivalent to asking us to die. Understand?" Bitter King frowned. "Why?" Qi Yaoyao suddenly said, "Because many powers are coveting these scriptures in secret. The contents of these 7 scrolls are enough for us to use for a few hundred years. As for the later ones, even though we want to read them as well, we'll be killed the moment we read them. Those powers don't dare to bully Yi Xian now, but that doesn't mean they won't dare to bully us. Understand?" Bitter King was speechless. Qi Yaoyao continued, 7 scriptures are more than enough for us. Any more and it won't be a blessing but a curse." The Lord nodded. "Yes." As he spoke, he stood up and smiled. "We've already earned a lot. We should keep a low profile and develop ourselves. As for young Master Yi, we can't help him even if we want to. However, he doesn't need our help. So, I hereby announce that all the disciples of the Dao tomb outside are to return." Bitter King frowned. "All of you?" The Lord smiled. "Yes. You're not allowed to leave for 100 years. As he spoke, he walked to the door and looked at the sky. "The world is about to change. And we are too weak. Developing ourselves is the way to go. In 100 years, the Dao tomb will become a great power in the world. Of course, we have to survive. Haha." Ancient God Abyss. Suja had also obtained the contents and annotations of the 1st to 7th Dao scriptures from Yi Xian. Somewhere at the top of a pyramid, the white-haired elder in front of Suja suddenly said, "Let all of us in the 5th dimension come back." Suja hesitated, then said, "Master, what do you mean?" The white-haired elder said softly, "Young Master Ye's matter is no longer something we can participate in. Obtaining these 7 Dao scriptures is already a great blessing. If we continue to get involved, we might have a greater opportunity, but it's also possible that we'll be doomed forever. Suja nodded. I understand. The white-haired elder turned to look in the direction of the fifth dimension and said softly, from today onwards, no one is allowed to leave the ancient god abyss. Suja said in a low voice, Master, the 8th and 9th Tao scriptures. The white-haired elder glanced at Suja. Being too greedy will kill you. As he finished speaking, he turned and left. Sky Oblivion Galaxy. A woman was shuttling through the starry sky, emitting a faint glow around her. Yiling. Yiling's face was expressionless, her expression cold. At this moment, behind her, a dozen powerful auras were closing in at an extremely fast speed. Yiling stopped and turned to look. At this moment, 12 people appeared in front of her. All of them were at the peak of the consolidation realm. The elder who led the group looked at Yiling. Miss Yiling, we would like to invite you to be a guest of the Tao sect. Will you come with us, or should we invite you? Yiling suddenly slapped out. Boom. The head of the elder who spoke flew into the air. The rest of the people were stunned. Yiling looked at the remaining people and slapped out again. Boom. One of the consolidation realm experts was directly turned into nothingness. Seeing this scene, the rest of the people's expressions changed drastically. Yiling walked towards the remaining people, her expression cold. Bullying his sister again. What does what he does have to do with his sister? Everyone. At this moment, Yiling suddenly said coldly, I'm asking you a question. As she said this, she slapped out again. Boom. In the distance, another expert of the consolidation realm died on the spot. FPZW. Chapter 1448. In the starry sky, the remaining consolidation realm experts were shocked to the extreme at this moment. How could Yi Xian's sister be so strong? Didn't they say that his sister was just average? In the distance, Yiling slowly walked toward the consolidation realm experts, her expression cold. Every day you threaten him with his sister. Is that all you can do? One of the old men walked out and said with a trembling voice, Sir, you. Yiling suddenly lashed out with another slap. Boom. The space where the old man was directly exploded, and the old man himself instantly turned into nothingness. The remaining people looked at Yiling as if she was looking at a devil. Since when did the consolidation realm experts become so weak? Just one slap? At this moment, the hearts of the remaining people were filled with fear. What had they done? How could such a devil come? Was this the legendary courting death? At this moment, Yiling suddenly blasted out a punch, and a glowing fist mark flashed out. Boom. The space in front of Yi Xian was directly erased, along with the consolidation realm experts. All the consolidation realm experts were instantly killed at this moment. Yiling clapped her hands, turned around, and left. At this moment, a voice sounded in Yiling's mind. Master, I want to see my brother. The person who spoke was naturally the real Yiling. Yiling continued to walk into the distance. If you go back now, you will become his burden. Yiling fell silent. Yiling said again, cultivate well with me, and you will be able to help him in the future, understand? After a while, Yiling said softly, understood. After a while, Yiling disappeared into the vast starry sky in the distance. In an ancient city in the heavenly oblivion starfield, an old man suddenly appeared on the city wall. He looked at the end of the distant starry sky, his eyes full of disbelief. This person was the patriarch of the Tian family in the heavenly oblivion starfield, Qi Lin. Just now, all the experts in the heavenly oblivion starfield were killed. 6 consolidation realm experts had all fallen at the same time. Yiling. After a moment of silence, Qi Lin said softly, didn't they say that his sister is very weak? Tao sect. In a certain pavilion, the second elder Tao suddenly opened his eyes and frowned. All the experts he had sent were gone. After a long silence, the second brother said softly, what a good Yi Xian, what a good Yiling. I underestimated you. With that, he got up and left. Outside the pavilion, there was a stretch of green mountains surrounded by flying cranes. The second Tao brother looked into the distance with a hint of doubt in his eyes. What kind of force is behind you? According to his investigation, There was a soul inside Yi Ling's body, but he never expected it to be so strong. At the beginning, he thought that only the woman in a plain dress and a few others were behind Yi Xian, but now he realized that it wasn't just them. He was very puzzled. What kind of force was behind Yi Xian? Could there really be a force stronger than the Tao sect in this world? Taoism. At present, the Tao sect was the #1 force in the myriad worlds because the Tao scripture originated from there. If there were no other forces, it wouldn't have any impact on the myriad worlds. However, if there were no Tao sect, the martial arts civilization of the myriad worlds would lag at least 1,000,000 years behind. Although the Tao sect became weaker with the departure of the owner of the Tao scripture, it was still not something that other forces could compare to. Now, the force behind Yi Xian made him feel pressured. What kind of force was it? At this moment, an old man suddenly appeared behind him. The old man bowed respectfully and said, "I found it. Green City Yi Clan Ancestral Temple. Ancestors, Yi Xian has no talent and no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as the crown prince will be replaced by Yi Lang." The one who spoke was an old man in a black robe. Not far behind the old man stood a young man with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides were the elders of the Yi clan. "Why?" At this moment, a timid voice suddenly rang out in the ancestral temple. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor, and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. This little girl was called Yi Ling, Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that the clan wanted to remove Yi Xian, she rushed over despite her illness. The black-robed old man frowned. "Yi Ling, what are you doing?" The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to the people in the ancestral temple, and said timidly, "Great elder, my brother Yi Xian is the crown prince. Why did you cripple him for no reason?" The great elder looked coldly at Yi Ling. "This is a matter of the clan. What are you interrupting for? Leave." Yi Ling was clearly a little fearful. She did not dare to look the great elder in the eye, but she did not leave. Instead, she mustered up her courage and walked into the ancestral hall. She bowed to the elders on both sides of the hall and said, "Elders, my brother is currently fighting with the Li family for the mining rights of the mine in Nanshan. He is now fighting for the family, and it is unknown whether he is alive or dead. However, the family has used a groundless excuse to remove his position as the crown prince. This is truly unfair. Impudent." The great elder suddenly raged. "Whether he's stripped or not, it's not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away." At this time, the new crown prince Yi Lang suddenly laughed. "You should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others." The great elder coldly replied, "Then flog him 30 times. Very quickly, 2 Yi clan guards rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists and said angrily, "This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years. Even now he's fighting for the clan. The clan is unfair to him." One of the guards glanced at the new crown prince Yi Lang. He knew that his chance to shine had come. The guard sneered, "Young Master Yi Lang inherits the crown prince's position. What are you yelling about?" As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded. Yi Ling's right cheek instantly turned red and swollen. However, she didn't cry. She just clutched her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard and smiled. "What's your name?" The guard hurriedly bowed. "This subordinate, Zhang Mu, greets the crown prince." Yi Lang nodded. "You're not bad. After I become the crown prince, I'll need 10 personal guards. From now on, you'll be my personal guard." Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed. He hurriedly bowed deeply. This subordinate is willing to go through fire and water for the crown prince. Yi Lang nodded. "Drag him away. This person is causing trouble in the ancestral hall. Do not hold back. Understood?" Zhang Mu glanced at Yi Lang. When he saw the killing intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this time, Zhang Mu seemed to have seen something and stopped. Within the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, A young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. He was wearing a tight-fitting robe that was tattered and covered in blood. This person was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from the Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's lips curled into a cold smile. Within the ancestral hall, all the elders were frowning. The great elder squinted his eyes, his face dark and gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. Who gave you the guts to touch my sister? When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He quickly looked at Yi Lang and was about to speak. At this time, Yi Xian was like a ferocious tiger leaping in front of him. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Pung! Zhang Mu felt his head spin, and he stumbled and fell. Yi Lang did not stop there. He charged towards Zhang Mu again. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared. Yi Xian, he's my man. How dare you? Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Pooh! Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly. Yi Xian lifted his head to look at him, asking savagely, Your man? As he spoke, he stomped on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess as he screamed, Prince, save me! Yi Xian did not care about Zhang Mu as he walked to Yi Ling's side. Seeing Yi Ling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being cut by a knife. He clenched his fists, and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed. Brother, it hurts. Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Zhang Mu and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Peng! Qingqing Yi Clan Ancestral Hall. Ancestors, Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as prince shall be replaced by Yi Lang. The one who spoke was an old man in black robes. Not far behind the old man, there was a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides there were the elders of the Yi clan. Why? Right at this moment, a slightly timid voice suddenly resounded within the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look, and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor, and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. This girl was called Yi Ling, and she was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that Yi Xian was to be replaced, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. Yi Ling, what are you doing? The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to everyone in the hall, as she asked timidly, Great Elder, my brother Yi Xian is the prince. Why did you cripple him for no reason? The Great Elder looked at Yi Ling coldly. This is a matter of the clan. What are you interrupting for? Leave. Yi Ling was obviously afraid, not daring to look at the Great Elder, but she did not leave. Instead, she plucked up her courage and walked into the hall. Once again, she bowed to the elders. Dear elders, my brother is fighting with the Li clan over the mining rights at Nanshan. He is fighting for the clan, and it is unknown whether he is dead or alive. Yet, the clan is using a groundless excuse to strip him of his position. This is really unfair. Impudent. The Great Elder suddenly raged. Whether or not he is crippled, it is not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away. At this time, the new prince Yi Lang suddenly laughed. You should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others. The Great Elder replied coldly, then flog him 30 times. Very quickly, 2 Yi clan guards rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists and said angrily, This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years, and even now, he is fighting for the clan. The clan is unfair to him. One of the guards glanced at the new prince Yi Lang. He knew that this was his chance to shine. The guard sneered. Young Master Yi Lang inherits the position of prince. What are you yelling about? As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded, and the right side of Yi Ling's face instantly swelled up. However, she did not cry, and only held her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard and smiled. What's your name? The guard hurriedly bowed. This subordinate, Zhang Mu, greets the prince. Yi Lang nodded. You are very good. After I become the prince, I will need 10 guards. From now on, you will be my guard." Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed and hurriedly bowed deeply. This subordinate is willing to go through fire and water for the prince, even if it means death. Yilang nodded slightly. "Drag him away. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall. Do not show mercy, understand?" Zhang Mu glanced at Yilang, and when he saw the murderous intent in Yilang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yilang's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Zhang Mu did not know what he saw, but he suddenly stopped. In the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe, and the robe was tattered, and there was blood everywhere. The young man was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yilang's mouth curled into a cold smile. In the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The great elder narrowed his eyes, and his expression was frighteningly gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yiling, his expression turned savage. "Who gave you the guts to touch my sister?" When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian, his expression changed. He quickly looked at Yilang, and was about to speak, when Yi Xian suddenly leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Pung! Zhang Mu's head spun and he stumbled and fell. Yilang did not stop there, and he rushed towards Zhang Mu again. At this time Yilang suddenly roared, "Yi Xian, he's my man, how dare you!" Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Pooh! Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yilang's expression turned ugly, while Yi Xian lifted his head to look at him, asking savagely, "Your man?" As he spoke, he stomped on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess as he screamed, "Prince, save me!" Yi Xian did not care about Zhang Mu. As he walked to Yiling's side, seeing Yiling's appearance, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced by a knife. He clenched his fists, and his entire body trembled. When Yiling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed. "Brother, it hurts, it hurts." Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Zhang Mu and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Pung! Chapter 1449. Outside the bamboo house, Holy Lord's heart skipped a beat. He didn't know how strong the plain-dressed woman was, but he knew the strength of the woman in the bamboo house. In any case, he didn't have the confidence to take a single blow from the woman in the bamboo house. However, he didn't expect that the woman in the bamboo house was so afraid of the plain-dressed woman. Who was the plain-dressed woman? How could she make the woman in the bamboo house so afraid? Holy Lord was very curious. At this time, the woman in the bamboo house suddenly said, "What are you waiting for?" Holy Lord came back to his senses and quickly bowed respectfully. "I will send someone to stop the Taoism experts." Saying this, he turned around and left. At this time, the woman's voice sounded again. "You go personally." Holy Lord was startled, then he nodded. "Yes." Saying this, he disappeared into the distance. Inside the bamboo house, the woman poured herself a cup of tea. She took a sip and said softly, "The cause of calamity. Xian City." When Yi Xian followed Zhao Yan and the others to Xian City, Yi Xian was stunned by the city in front of him. The entire city stretched across the starry sky like a giant beast, causing people to involuntarily feel a sense of insignificance. Yi Xian chuckled. "Impressive." Zhao Yan grinned. "My Dark Star City has existed for 160,000 years. During these 160,000 years, we've experienced many things. However, we still exist. Proud." One had to admit that Xian City was qualified. At present, even Dao City and Boundless Holy Land didn't dare to provoke Xian City. Of course, Xian City didn't dare to provoke these two forces. Both sides had deep foundations. Once a war broke out, both sides would suffer. Zhao Yan led Yi Xian into the city. As soon as they entered the city, Yi Xian felt countless powerful auras. Yi Xian's expression gradually became solemn. One had to admit that Xian City was indeed powerful. Although the fifth dimension had absorbed so many experts from the whirling world, there was still a big gap between them and Xian City. After all, Most of the Whirling World's experts had been killed by the white-robed Qing. Zhao Yan brought Yi Xian to a large hall. He bowed slightly towards the hall, then looked at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, the city lord requests your presence." Yi Xian nodded and walked into the hall. The hall was empty except for a woman. The woman wore a long purple dress, and her long hair draped over her shoulders. At this moment, she was looking at him with a smile. It was a woman. Yi Xian was a little surprised. He never thought that the city lord of Xian City would be a woman. The woman smiled and said, "Young Master Yi seems to be a little surprised." Yi Xian smiled and said, "Indeed." The woman shook her head and smiled. She slowly walked in front of Yi Xian and sized up Yi Xian, then said, "Young Master Yi's Dao body has already reached the Dao controlling realm. Moreover, it was because he devoured the blood of the Naga dragons that he reached the Dao controlling realm. Right?" Yi Xian nodded. "That's right." The woman looked at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi saved the Naga dragons." Yi Xian shook his head. "He only brought one of the Naga dragons out." The woman was silent. Yi Xian asked, "What's the matter?" The woman shook her head and smiled. "Young Master Yi, do you know who imprisoned the Naga dragons?" Yi Xian shook his head. "I don't know." The woman had a complicated expression. "To be honest, I'm afraid that only young Master Yi can bear such a huge karma." Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "Miss, what do you know?" The woman nodded and said with a smile, "The one who imprisoned the Naga dragons was the martial emperor of the ultimate martial realm. This person was almost invincible back then." Yi Xian hesitated. "Is he still alive?" The woman smiled and said, "Yes, he's still alive." Yi Xian was speechless. The woman smiled slightly. "Let's not talk about the grudge between the martial emperor and the Naga dragons. Let's talk about your Dao body." Yi Xian suddenly said, "How should I address you, senior?" "Senior." The woman glanced at Yi Xian. Up until now, she had a good impression of Yi Xian. Yi Xian was neither servile nor overbearing, and he didn't have the slightest arrogance. If Yi Xian was overbearing because of the woman in the plain dress, then such a person wasn't worthy of Xian City's goodwill. The woman collected her thoughts and said with a smile, "You can be called Lan Ruo." Yi Xian said, "Senior Lan Ruo." The woman glanced at Yi Xian. "Miss is good. The word senior is too old." Yi Xian smiled. "All right, Miss Lan Ruo." Lan Ruo smiled and said, "Let's talk about your Dao body. If you want to improve your Dao body further, you will need the help of external objects. Otherwise, you can only slowly stabilize your physical body over time. However, if that's the case, you won't be able to break through for at least a few hundred years." Yi Xian nodded. "I know. Therefore, I'm here to ask for help from Miss Lan Ruo." Lan Ruo smiled and said, "You've really found the right person. For now, besides the Dao sex, the only one who can help you improve is my Xian City." Yi Xian looked at Lan Ruo. "Miss Lan Ruo, according to what I know, the Dao sex have already started to target me. Isn't Xian City afraid of the Dao sex for helping me?" Lan Ruo smiled and said, "We're not afraid, but we really don't want to be enemies with the Dao sections." As she said that, she glanced at Yi Xian and smiled. "I'll also be honest with young Master Yi. If you fight with the Dao sex, we won't send anyone to help you. That's because the price we'll have to pay if we start a war with the Dao sex. However, in private, if we can help young Master Yi, as long as it's within our capabilities, we'll do our best." Yi Xian looked straight at Lan Ruo. "Just because of Qing?" Lan Ruo shook her head. "Not just because of that, senior, but also because of young Master Yi." Yi Xian was a little surprised. "Me?" Lan Ruo smiled and said, "Before we met young Master Yi, we just wanted to express our goodwill to you and form a good relationship with you. However, after meeting young Master Yi's actions made me have a good impression of you. I think you're a good person, so we can get to know each other better." Yi Xian smiled and said, "Because of those Dao scriptures?" Lan Ruo chuckled and said, "You can say that." Yi Xian fell silent. Actually, he knew very well that the reason why the other party was so friendly was mainly because of Qing. Without Qing, no matter how good Yi Xian was, Xian City wouldn't offend the Dao sex for him. At the thought of this, Yi Xian smiled and said, "If Miss Lan Rua needs any help in the future, feel free to let me know. I'll do my best to help as long as it's within my capabilities." Lan Rua looked at Yi Xian and smiled. "Really?" Yi Xian nodded. Lan Rua smiled and said, "I'd like to thank young Master Yi in advance." Yi Xian smiled and said, "Miss Lan Rua, you're too polite. I might only be able to help Miss Lan Rua in the future, but Miss Lan Rua can help me now. I'm taking advantage of you." Lan Rua shook her head and said, "Young Master Yi, you're a swordsman and a straightforward person. I'll be frank with you. If we can get that senior to give us a few pointers, the value of that would be worth more than 10 Xian cities." As she said that, she looked at Yi Xian and said, "If there's a chance in the future, I'd like to ask young Master Yi to recommend me. Lan Rua will be eternally grateful." Yi Xian nodded and said, "If I see Qing, I'll definitely recommend you." Lan Rua smiled and said, "Thank you." As she said that, she looked outside and said, "Young master, please follow me." After that, she walked out of the hall. Yi Xian followed behind her. Lan Rua brought Yi Xian to an underground palace. The underground palace was eerie and the wind was bone-chilling. Yi Xian looked around and asked, "This is?" Lan Rua smiled and said, "A forbidden area of Xian City." Yi Xian nodded and continued to follow Lan Rua. After a while, Lan Rua brought Yi Xian to an altar. A huge beast was lying on the altar. The huge beast was shaped like a dragon and had 4 horns and 6 tails. Its entire body was covered in thick, pitch-black scales. Yi Xian was puzzled and asked, "What is this?" Lan Rua said softly, "An exotic beast, winged dragon." Yi Xian looked at Lan Rua and asked, "The dragon race?" Lan Rua smiled and said, "You can say that. However, it's different from the Naga dragons. The dragon race actually has many branches, such as the Naga dragons, winged dragons, ancient dragons, true dragons. After all, dragons are lascivious by nature and like to sow seeds everywhere. Therefore, the entire dragon race has many species." Yi Xian was speechless. The reason why the dragon race had so many branches was because they were lascivious by nature. As if he had thought of something, Yi Xian asked, "Then among the dragon race, which is the strongest?" Lan Rua thought for a while and said, "It should be the ancestral dragon, the ancestor of all dragons. However, this dragon completely disappeared hundreds of thousands of years ago." As she said that, she looked at Yi Xian and smiled. "If you can devour some of the ancestral dragon's blood, your physical body should be able to easily reach the consolidation realm. In fact, it might even be possible for you to go beyond that. Unfortunately, the ancestral dragon's blood is extremely precious. Only the Dao sex might have some of it. After all, the ancestral dragon followed that senior back then." Yi Xian asked, "The Dao scripture's owner?" Lan Rua nodded. The ancestral dragon was his mount back then. Therefore, the Dao sex might have its blood. However, the Dao sex will definitely not give it to young Master Yi. Yi Xian smiled and looked at Winged Dragon in the distance. "Is this Winged Dragon alive or?" Lan Rua said softly, "It's dead. It was killed by my ancestor back then." Yi Xian nodded. "Understood." Lan Rua looked at Winged Dragon. "This dragon's blood is still here. Young Master Yi can devour its blood later." As she said that, she opened her palm and hundreds of white jade bottles appeared in front of Yi Xian. These are all supreme-grade pills that can strengthen one's physical body. After young Master Yi devours its blood later, you can use these pills. That way, your chances of success will be much higher. Yi Xian cupped his fists. "Thank you." With that, he put away the pills and walked up to Winged Dragon. Just as he was about to make a move, Lan Rua suddenly said, "Young Master Yi." Yi Xian turned to look at Lan Rua. Lan Rua looked at Yi Xian. Among the many types of dragons, Winged Dragon is one of the most lascivious. Its blood is extremely young and tyrannical. If you devour its blood, you might not be able to suppress the lascivious nature in its blood. Yi Xian smiled. "Don't worry, Miss Lan Rua. This bloodline of mine will definitely be able to suppress that lascivious nature." Lan Rua nodded. "Then young Master Yi, let's begin." She had some understanding of Yi Xian's blood. If he could even devour the blood of the Nagas, then winged dragon's blood shouldn't be a problem. On the altar, Yi Xian swiped his right hand and winged dragon's corpse split open. The next moment, a stream of fresh blood spurted out. Yi Xian gently guided with his palm, and the blood directly entered his body. Boom. As soon as winged dragon's blood entered his body, Yi Xian's eyes widened. His entire body felt unbearably hot. Yi Xian hurriedly activated the power of his bloodline. However, the moment he activated it, he discovered that his body had become even hotter. What's going on? Yi Xian was stunned. His body was getting hotter and hotter, and a certain part of his body was reacting strongly. Yi Xian hurriedly tried to suppress it again. However, when he activated the power of his bloodline again, he discovered that his body was reacting even more strongly. Yi Xian was horrified. Holy shit! What the hell is this? In the distance, Lan Ruo looked at the red Yi Xian and frowned. She said softly, "Could it be that your bloodline is lascivious in nature as well?" Yi Xian. Chapter 1450. On the altar, Yi Xian's face was as red as burning iron. Apart from that, all the blood in his body started to boil. Yi Xian's expression was extremely ugly. This was because he realized that his blood could not suppress the blood of Rainbringer at all. On the contrary, it seemed to be taking the side of the evildoer. Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. He began to calm down and concentrate. To suppress the blood of Rainbringer and the demonic madness bloodline. If he were to be controlled by his own bloodline while he was awake, wouldn't that be too useless? In the distance, Lan Ruo did not leave either. Although Yi Xian was not in a good state, the current Yi Xian was not a threat to her. She was the city lord of Mystic City, one of the strongest in the world. Even if the second brother was here, he might not be able to do anything to her, let alone Yi Xian. Lan Ruo just watched. On the altar in the distance, Yi Xian's expression gradually began to contort. It was obvious that Yi Xian was in great pain. If it was just the blood of Rainbringer, it would be a piece of cake for him. The problem was that his own bloodline was also causing trouble. What he really wanted to suppress was actually his own bloodline. He realized that this bloodline was a little beastly. Just like that, time passed bit by bit. Unknowingly, Zhao Yan appeared behind Lan Ruo. Zhao Yan bowed slightly and said respectfully, "City Lord, the Dao sect has sent 6 Consolidation Realm experts to hunt down that senior." Lan Ruo turned to look at Zhao Yan. "Are you sure?" Zhao Yan nodded. "Absolutely," Lan Ruo said softly. "What is the second brother trying to do? I don't really understand." Zhao Yan said solemnly. "Perhaps they think that the senior is very weak." Lan Ruo asked, "Why?" Zhao Yan hesitated for a moment before saying, "When I was investigating young Master Yi, I found out that the Tendo of the 5th dimension, Mu Niannian, had told young Master Yi that she and the plain dress woman were evenly matched. Moreover, she had said this more than once." Lan Ruo blinked. "She really said that?" Zhao Yan nodded. Lan Ruo said softly, "This 5th dimension Tendo, she has really caused great harm to the Dao sect." Zhao Yan spoke in a low voice. "That senior is about to enter the beast realm." Lan Ruo frowned. "Beast realm?" Zhao Yan nodded. "Yes." There was a hint of doubt in Lan Ruo's eyes. Could it be that she wants to go to the beast realm? Or could it be that she's just passing through the beast realm? Zhao Yan said solemnly, "City Lord, this beast realm." Lan Ruo said softly, "You shouldn't be worried about her, but the beast realm." Zhao Yan. Lan Ruo asked again, "What about the boundless sacred ground?" Zhao Yan shook his head. "The people we planted in the boundless sacred land are all dead." Lan Ruo said softly, "This place is even more mysterious than Taoism." Zhao Yan nodded. "Now I don't dare to send people to the boundless sacred land, because once they go there, they will disappear without a trace." After a moment of silence, Lan Ruo said, "Forget about them. Continue to pay attention to the Dao sect's movements, and report to me at any time." Zhao Yan bowed slightly. "Yes." After saying that, he turned and left. Lan Ruo turned to look at Yi Xian on the altar in the distance and said softly, "Second brother Dao, Young Master Yi is lucky to have an opponent like you. After an unknown period of time, Yi Xian's expression gradually calmed down. He had forcefully suppressed the power of his bloodline. When he was in a frenzied state, he couldn't do anything to the power of his bloodline. However, when he was sober, he could still suppress the power of his bloodline. At this moment, Lan Ruo walked in front of Yi Xian. She took a look at Yi Xian and said, "Can you continue to absorb the blood of the winged dragon?" Yi Xian nodded. "Yes." Lan Ruo nodded slightly. "Then let's continue. I will protect you." Yi Xian said, "Thank you." As he spoke, he started to continue absorbing the blood of the winged dragon. At the same time, he started to consume the medicinal pills. As more and more of the blood of the winged dragon was absorbed by Yi Xian, his body started to tremble while strands of powerful aura emanated from within him. His body started to gradually change. Lan Ruo gazed at Yi Xian with a calm expression, but she was slightly shocked in her heart. She wasn't shocked by Yi Xian's Dao physique, it was Yi Xian's bloodline. Because after the blood of the winged dragon entered Yi Xian's body, it didn't affect Yi Xian's bloodline at all. There had been people in Dark City who had tried to absorb the blood of the winged dragon, but all of them had failed, because the blood of the winged dragon was truly too powerful. The bloodline of humans couldn't endure the impact of the blood of the winged dragon at all. However, the blood of the winged dragon hadn't affected Yi Xian's bloodline at all. In other words, the power of Yi Xian's bloodline was far superior to the blood of the winged dragon. Exactly what sort of bloodline is this? Lan Ruo's heart was filled with curiosity. Right at this moment, Yi Xian's body started to tremble. Inside his body, there was a violent force that was attacking his body. When she saw this, Lan Ruo suddenly placed her right hand lightly on top of Yi Xian's head. Boom! A powerful aura enveloped Yi Xian. In an instant, the violent force within Yi Xian's body was suppressed. Lan Ruo said in a low voice, "Your Dao physique is about to break through. Don't get distracted. The force within your body is the power of the winged dragon's bloodline. It's useless to you. Guide it slowly, and then disperse it out of your body." Yi Xian nodded, and he started to slowly draw the blood of the winged dragon out of his body. Just like that, Yi Xian's body gradually calmed down after around 2 days. Meanwhile, Lan Ruo retreated to the side and glanced at the corpse of the winged dragon. At this moment, the blood of the winged dragon had been completely absorbed by Yi Xian. When she thought of this, she couldn't help but shake her head and laugh bitterly. The blood of the winged dragon was a supreme-grade ingredient for refining elixirs. Its value was unimaginable. But now Yi Xian had benefited from it just like that. But fortunately, it was worth it. Based on her investigations, Yi Xian wasn't someone who didn't know how to be grateful. Today, Xian City had helped Yi Xian and sowed good karma. Although there was no guarantee that there would be good results, she was willing to give it a try. Apart from the plain-dressed lady, Yi Xian was also partially willing. After meeting Yi Xian, she realized that Yi Xian was even more of a monster than they had imagined. Given time, Yi Xian's achievements would definitely not be low. Investing in such a monster would definitely be beneficial to Xian City in the future. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes and stood up. The moment he stood up, the space around him shook violently and cracked. Yi Xian was stunned. At this moment, Lan Ruo suddenly smiled and said, "Congratulations, your Taoist physique has reached the Dao defense realm." Dao defense realm. Yi Xian slowly clenched his right hand, and a powerful force gathered in his hand. This force was at least 5 times stronger than before. As if thinking of something, Yi Xian tore off his clothes and looked at his body. At this moment, his body was at least emitting a faint glow. Beside him, Lan Ruo smiled and said, "With your current physical body, ordinary consolidation realm experts can't do anything to you." As she spoke, she looked at Yi Xian's body and said softly, "As expected of the #1 Taoist physique. It's indeed nature-defying." After putting on his clothes, Yi Xian looked at Lan Ruo and cupped his fists. "Thank you, Miss Lan Ruo." Lan Ruo smiled and said, "What do you plan to do next?" Yi Xian said in a low voice, "Miss Lan Ruo, I want you to do something for me." Lan Ruo said, "Speak." Yi Xian said, "I want to auction the contents of the 8th Taoist scripture." Lan Rua was stunned, then said, "You want to auction the contents of the 8th Taoist scripture?" Yixian nodded. Lan Rua asked in a low voice, "Are you short of money?" Yixian nodded. "I'm short of a lot." Lan Rua looked at Yixian. "You want to nurture those people in the 5th dimension?" Yixian nodded. Lan Rua was silent for a moment, then said, "How about this? Sell the contents of the 8th Taoist scripture to me." Yixian shook his head. Lan Rua looked at Yixian. "The price I give you will not be low." Yixian smiled. "Miss Lan Rua, you've misunderstood me." As he spoke, he took out a scroll and handed it to Lan Rua. "This is the contents of the 8th Taoist scripture. I'm giving it to you." Lan Rua looked at Yixian. "You're giving it to me?" Yixian smiled. "First you helped me raise my cultivation base, and now you're helping me improve my physical body. If I were to sell you the 8th Taoist scripture, wouldn't I be too much of a good-for-nothing? Miss Lan Rua, I'm giving you the contents of the 8th Taoist scripture. However, I hope you won't spread it, because I'm still hoping to use this Taoist scripture to make a fortune." After a moment of silence, Lan Rua took the scroll and said, "I'll accept the Taoist scripture. However, I can't accept it for free." As she spoke, she took out a storage ring and handed it to Yixian. "For you." Yixian shook his head. "I've said it. It's for you." Lan Rua smiled. "You can take a look first." Yixian took a look. His eyelids twitched, and his heart raced. Lan Rua smiled. "Take it." However, Yixian shook his head. "I've said it. It's for you." Lan Rua looked at Yixian. "Are you serious?" Yixian smiled. "A drop of kindness should be returned with a spring of gratitude." Lan Rua smiled. "Then I want the 9th scroll." Yixian opened his palm, and a Taoist scripture appeared in his hand. He looked at Lan Rua and said, "This is the 9th scroll." Lan Rua looked at Yixian and didn't say anything. Yixian smiled. "Do you think I'm joking, Miss Lan Rua?" Lan Rua shook her head and said softly, "Young Master Yi, I've realized that all of us have underestimated you." She turned around and left after she finished speaking. She didn't take Yixian's 9th Taoist scripture. The value of the 8th Taoist scripture far exceeded what Xian City had given Yixian. If she took the 9th scroll as well, then this favor would be completely gone. Not only that, but Xian City would owe Yixian a favor. Moreover, greedy people usually didn't come to a good end. Moreover, if Xian City wanted to be friends with Yixian, they had to know their limits. Yixian always had a sense of propriety in his actions and words. Under such circumstances, Xian City couldn't be greedy. Inside the hall, Yixian looked at the 9th Taoist scripture in front of him and shook his head with a smile. He didn't expect Miss Lan Rua to not take the 9th Taoist scripture. Since the place had underestimated him, didn't he also underestimate Lan Rua? After a while, Yixian left. Somewhere in the starry sky, the Holy Master was running with a few people. They had already raised their speed to the maximum. They had to stop the Taoists from searching for the plain-dressed woman. After an unknown period of time, an old man beside him said in a deep voice, "Holy Master, I'm afraid we won't be able to catch up." The Holy Master stopped in his tracks. He looked at the end of the starry sky with an extremely gloomy expression. "Damn it, why are they running so fast? Are they rushing to reincarnate? P.S. I've been quite busy lately because I'm going to look at buildings. I'm planning to buy a few buildings. Do you guys think it's better to buy a villa or a building? Also, I'm planning to buy a car with 4 wheels. Do you guys think a Maserati or a Lamborghini is better? Or should I buy one of both? But I also feel that it's a little wasteful, and a little worried." Chapter 1451. Somewhere in the starry sky, an old man was leading a group of experts as they traveled madly through the starry sky. This old man was the Taoist faction's Qing He. At this moment, Qing He and the people behind him had raised their speed to their limits, because they wouldn't be able to catch up if they were too late. Once the woman in a plain dress stepped into the Beastman dimension, then they could only watch helplessly, because the Beastman dimension wasn't a place they could step foot into, so they had to be fast. Because they were too fast, the starry sky was torn apart inch by inch wherever Qing He and the others passed. It was an extremely shocking scene. Around an hour later, Qing He suddenly spoke with excitement. We caught up. The people behind him looked up and saw a woman in a plain dress at the end of the starry sky. At this moment, the woman in a plain dress suddenly stopped. There was an enormous stone stele not too far away from her. And there were 4 large words on the stone stele. Human stop. The border between the beast-man dimension and the human dimension. The woman in a plain dress continued forward. Right at this moment, a thunderous voice resounded from behind her. Stop! The woman in a plain dress turned around. The starry sky in the distance was suddenly torn apart, and in the next moment, 5 people appeared a few hundred meters away from her. It was Qing He. The woman in a plain dress looked at Qing He with a calm expression, and there wasn't the slightest fluctuation in her eyes. Qing He looked at her with a solemn expression. He didn't dare underestimate her in the slightest because he noticed that he couldn't sense her aura at all. There were 2 possibilities. The first was that she had a special technique to conceal her aura. The second was that she was too strong. Qing He restrained his thoughts and looked at her. You're Yi Xian's Tao protector. Yi Xian. The woman's eyes flickered slightly when she heard this name, and she nodded slightly. Qing He stared fixedly at her. Have you heard of my Taoist faction? The woman shook her head. Qing He frowned slightly. You haven't heard of the Taoist faction? The woman glanced at Qing He. How is he now? Qing He said. You're talking about Yi Xian? The woman nodded. Qing He was expressionless. He isn't doing very well. The woman's beautiful brows knit together slightly. Qing He looked at the woman and said solemnly, Have you really not heard of my Tao sect? The woman in the plain dress looked at Qing He. Is it your Tao sect that is making things difficult for him? Qing He looked straight at the plain dress woman. Yes. As he spoke, he slowly clenched his right hand, and a powerful force condensed in his right hand. He didn't dare be careless in the slightest when facing this woman in a simple dress, and it wasn't just that. He was prepared to flee at any moment. His objective for coming here this time was naturally to kill the woman in a plain dress. But if he couldn't kill her, then he would choose to flee decisively. After all, the people behind Yi Xian were not simple. He had already thought of a way out. The woman in the plain dress was silent. No one knew what she was thinking. Qing He stared at the plain dress woman. I heard that the 5th dimension Tendo and you are evenly matched. The plainly dressed woman thought for a moment and nodded. Yes. Qing He narrowed his eyes. What realm are you at? The woman thought for a moment and said, I'm a little taller than you. Qing He furrowed his brows. Above unity? The woman in the plain dress nodded. Qing He suddenly disappeared on the spot, and in the next moment, a fist imprint suddenly appeared in front of the plain dress woman. The woman raised her sword to block it. Bang! As an explosion sounded out, the woman in the plain dress retreated over 100 feet. However, Qing He exploded violently. Qing He had retreated over 1 kilometer. After Qing He stopped moving, his eyes were filled with excitement. You really aren't that strong. The woman's expression was calm as she glanced at Qing He and the others. All of you can't kill me. Qing He fell silent. The collision from before had allowed him to gain a rough understanding of her strength. Just as she'd said, she was at most above unity. However, they would definitely be unable to do anything to her. It was too little. Meanwhile, the woman in a plain dress spoke abruptly. Why don't you go get more people? Qing He raised his head to look at her. You're not running? She shook her head. I'm not running. Qing He frowned slightly. Why? She thought for a moment and said, I'm tired from walking. So let's rest. Qing He gazed at her. Are you sure you won't run? She nodded. Qing He said, Then just you wait. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Meanwhile, the woman in a plain dress spoke abruptly. Get someone stronger. Qing He turned around and glanced at her. As you wish. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and vanished into the horizon. However, the 4 of them who'd come with him hadn't left. All of them were staring at the woman in a plain dress. Obviously, they were afraid that she would flee. The woman in a plain dress turned around and gazed into the distance. No one knew what she was thinking. She didn't want to go back, because she was afraid that she wouldn't want to leave once she returned. However, she had no choice but to leave. There were numerous karmic lines around her that ordinary people couldn't see. Calamity lines. The dense expanse of karmic lines coiled around her like a dumpling. All of them belonged to Yi Xian. She couldn't slash them all. Boundless karmic lines. She just didn't slash them. In any case, these calamity lines couldn't do anything to her. Actually, she could stay by Yi Xian's side forever. So long as she stayed by Yi Xian's side, then no matter how terrifying the calamity lines were, they wouldn't be able to do anything to Yi Xian. However, she still wanted to find the source. Who exactly is controlling all of this? The woman in a plain dress slowly closed her eyes. Don't let me find you. Somewhere in the starry sky, Qinghe, who was rushing towards the Dao sect, suddenly stopped, because he'd encountered the sacred leader and the others. Qinghe looked at the sacred leader. All of you came to kill that woman as well. The sacred leader stared at Qinghe. All of you found her? Qinghe nodded. The sacred leader frowned slightly. You didn't die? Qinghe sneered. All of you overestimate her. She's just that. The sacred leader's frown deepened. Just that? Qinghe smiled. Why? All of you think she's very strong? The sacred leader fell silent. He was slightly puzzled. That shouldn't be the case. There was no reason for Master to lie to him. At this moment, Qinghe suddenly said, Sacred leader, are you here to kill this person as well? The sacred leader hesitated for a moment before shaking his head. No. Qinghe was slightly puzzled. Then why did you come here? The sacred leader fell silent. Could it be that I'm here to stop you from sending yourself to death? The sacred leader shook his head and said, Qinghe, you fought her before? Qinghe nodded. The sacred leader was slightly puzzled. Is she really not that strong? Qinghe frowned slightly. Sacred leader, why do you think she's very strong? The sacred leader. Qinghe suddenly he said, Sacred leader, you came at the right time. If we join forces, we can definitely kill this person. The sacred leader hurriedly shook his head. I'm just passing by. As he said this, he looked at Qinghe. Are you going back? Qinghe nodded. Although this woman isn't as strong as the white-robed woman, we can't underestimate her. It's still a little difficult for us to kill her, so, the sacred leader suddenly said, So you're going back to call for help? Qinghe nodded. The sacred leader said in a deep voice, Have you ever thought that this matter is a little strange? Qinghe frowned slightly. Strange? The sacred leader said in a deep voice, I think she might have deliberately asked you to go back and call for help. Qinghe said in a deep voice, You're saying that she deliberately showed weakness? The sacred leader nodded. Qinghe shook his head. Absolutely impossible. The sacred leader was slightly puzzled. Why is it impossible? Qinghe said, Why would she show weakness? The sacred leader fell silent. He didn't know why she would show weakness. Qinghe continued, If she's really extremely strong, then why didn't she appear when Yi Xian was targeted by the whirling world? Moreover, if she's really strong, then why didn't she just go to my Taoist faction and destroy it? Why did she show weakness? What's the point of that? The sacred leader fell silent. Indeed, he didn't understand. If she was really as strong as his master said, then why didn't she just destroy the Taoist faction? Or did she not take the Taoist faction seriously at all? Or did she disdain to go to the Taoist faction? Meanwhile, Qinghe suddenly said, According to what we know, she's always called herself Yi Xian's younger sister, so she definitely has an extremely good relationship with Yi Xian. If we can capture her, then we can use her to threaten Yi Xian, and make Yi Xian hesitate in taking action. Moreover, it might even make the white-robed woman behind Yi Xian hesitate in taking action. The sacred leader looked at Qinghe and was about to speak. Meanwhile, Qinghe suddenly said, Let's not waste any more time. Sacred leader, let's talk another day. After saying that, he turned and disappeared into the horizon. In the starry sky, the sacred leader fell silent. He still felt that something was wrong, because his master had no reason to lie to him. In other words, there was only one explanation. That was, The woman deliberately showed weakness and deliberately made Qing He go back to call for help. Thinking of this, the sacred leader said softly, "This Taoist faction is going to be tricked." Saying that, he shook his head. "With such a teammate, I'm a little panicked." Taoist faction. Qing He rushed back to Doubting as fast as he could. In a pavilion, the second brother looked at Qing He. "She told you to come back and call for help?" Qing He nodded. "Yes." The second brother fell silent. "This matter is a little strange." Qing He hurriedly shook his head. "No, I think she underestimated the enemy." The second brother was a little puzzled. "Underestimated the enemy?" Qing He nodded. "Although this woman is not good with words, I can feel that she is very arrogant. When she looks at me, it feels like she is looking at an ant. Moreover, she is a swordsman and has never heard of our Taoist faction. Therefore, I feel that she has no idea how strong our Taoist faction is. In her eyes, our Taoist faction might be some third-rate force." The second brother fell silent. Qing He continued, "I have fought with this woman. Although she did not use her sword, I have a rough idea of her strength. She is an expert, but compared to the white-robed woman and Situtingyan, there is still a big gap. This woman is our breakthrough point. Once we capture this woman, not only can we threaten Yi Xian and make Yi Xian hesitate, we can also use this woman to understand the force behind Yi Xian. It can be said to be killing two birds with one stone." The second brother was still silent. Obviously, he was a little hesitant because he felt that things might not be so simple. Qing He was a little anxious. "Second master, this is a rare opportunity. Let's do it." Chapter 1452. A once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Second brother Dao narrowed his eyes. "I'll go myself." Qing He shook his head. "No need. As long as you give me 10 consolidation realm experts. As for you, second master, fourth master is in closed-door cultivation. Just in case, you have to personally guard this place." Second brother Dao said in a low voice, "Is 10 enough?" Qing He smiled. "Enough." Second brother Dao thought for a moment and shook his head. "We still can't be careless. How about this? I'll ask the one institution's head, Wen Tianyu, to go with you." Qing He nodded. "In this way, it's basically foolproof." Second brother Dao frowned. "Don't be careless." Qing He smiled. "Understood." A moment later, Qing He left the Dao sect with 10 consolidation realm experts and the one institution's head, Wen Tianyu, and headed straight for the depths of the starry sky. Second brother Dao slowly closed his eyes, and he felt quite uneasy in his heart. A moment later, second brother Dao opened his eyes, and they were filled with coldness. Who had the Dao sect been afraid of? Who had they been afraid of? Somewhere in the starry sky, the sacred lord didn't leave with everyone. Instead, he came to the starry sky where the woman in the plain dress was. He wanted to see exactly who this woman in the plain dress was. When he saw the woman in the plain dress, the sacred lord's expression instantly became solemn. His strength and knowledge were far beyond Qing He's. The moment he saw the woman in the plain dress, he knew that she was deliberately showing weakness. This woman was very strong, but he didn't know exactly how strong she was. At this moment, the woman in the plain dress turned to look at the sacred lord. The sacred lord's expression changed, and he didn't hesitate to turn around and leave. He knew that if he didn't leave now, he might not be able to leave later. The woman in the plain dress didn't make a move, and allowed the sacred lord and the others to leave. The woman in the plain dress stood in the starry sky. She looked into the depths of the starry sky, and she held a small wooden figure in her hand. This small wooden figure looked exactly like Yi Xian. After a long time, the woman in the plain dress withdrew her gaze and looked at the small wooden figure. When she saw it, a rare trace of gentleness flashed in her eyes. At this moment, the space behind her suddenly trembled. In the next moment, a dozen powerful auras suddenly appeared behind her. Not long after, Qing He and the others appeared behind the woman in the plain dress. Qing He instantly heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that the woman in a plain dress hadn't left. All along the way, he was rather worried that the woman in a plain dress would flee. If the woman in a plain dress fled, then it would be equivalent to missing a rare opportunity. Fortunately, The woman did not run away. When Tianyu, the head of the academy, said abruptly, "Retreat! Retreat!" Qing He was stunned when he heard Wen Tianyu, and then he said, "What do you mean by that?" When Tianyu looked at Qing He, "Retreat." With that, he turned around and left. At this moment, Wen Tianyu's expression was extremely solemn. To be exact, he was a little nervous. The instant he saw her, he knew that she wasn't an ordinary person. This was a conspiracy. Therefore, he decisively chose to leave. However, it was a little too late. A wisp of sword light had pierced through his glabella. It was completely silent. When Tianyu stood rooted to the ground, his eyes glazed over. When did she use her sword? He didn't know. He only knew that he was dead. On the other hand, Qing He and the others were stunned. When Tianyu is dead? As if he'd thought of something, Qing He turned around to look at the woman in a plain dress, and his voice trembled as he said, "It's you." The woman glanced at Qing He. How boring. As soon as she finished speaking, she turned around and left. Qing He was about to speak when the heads of over a dozen experts flew into the air. The heads of more than a dozen experts flew out one after another. Fresh blood gushed out like a fountain. It was extremely bloody. Qing He was slightly stunned. In next to no time, he covered his neck with both hands because his throat had suddenly split open and blood sprayed out. Qing He was horrified, and his soul was about to flee. At his level, even if his body was destroyed, so long as his soul remained, then he could be reborn. However, when his soul was about to flee, he noticed to his astonishment that his soul was gradually vanishing. Qing He stood on the spot. He knew that he was dead. His soul had been obliterated. Qing He raised his head to look at the woman in a plain dress. Is it fun to act weak? In the distance, the woman didn't even turn around. She felt that she was wasting time. Such a weak person shouldn't be a threat to her brother. Let him play by himself. In the battlefield, Qing He wanted to inform his second brother before he died, but he was powerless to do so. Right now, he only had a sliver of consciousness. His soul and body had been erased. This sliver of consciousness had no roots, so it had no meaning. Moreover, this sliver of consciousness was also vanishing. That sword had directly erased everything he had. Tens of thousands of years of cultivation, gone in an instant. In the distance, the woman in a plain dress had already stepped into the Beastman world. The moment she stepped into the Beastman world, a voice suddenly sounded from the distant starry sky. "Human, this is the Beastman world." The woman didn't stop and continued to walk into the distance. At this moment, a shadow suddenly appeared not far away from the woman in a plain dress. The shadow gradually solidified, and soon, an expert with the face of a beast appeared in front of the woman in a plain dress. This Beastman expert looked at the woman in a plain dress. This is the Beastman world. The woman in a plain dress looked at the Beastman expert. Excuse me. The Beastman expert looked straight at the woman in a plain dress. No. The woman in a plain dress suddenly pulled out her sword. Hiss. A strand of sword light tore through the sky. The Beastman expert's pupils constricted. He wanted to resist, but as soon as the thought arose in his mind, his head flew into the air. However, the strand of sword light didn't disappear. It tore through the sky and traveled a distance of 500,000 kilometers. The starry sky within 500,000 kilometers was destroyed inch by inch. This sword had directly destroyed the border between the Beastman world and the human world. At this moment, the entire Beastman world was shocked. A human expert had invaded? At this moment, a middle-aged man appeared in front of the woman in a plain dress. The middle-aged man didn't seem much different from a human, and the only difference was his eyes. His eyes were dark purple. The middle-aged man looked at the woman in a plain dress with an extremely solemn expression. Danger. That was what he felt at this moment. How many years has it been since he felt danger? The woman didn't stop and continued forward. The middle-aged man said in a low voice, "Human, my Beastman race once signed an agreement with your Dao sex ancestor to not invade our race. Why have you come to invade my Beastman race?" The woman in a plain dress looked at the middle-aged man. "I'm just passing by." The middle-aged man was stunned, and then he said, "You're just passing by. Then why did you kill people and destroy this world? The woman in a plain dress looked at the middle-aged man. You're not satisfied? The middle-aged man. The woman in a plain dress continued forward. The middle-aged man fell silent. When the woman passed by the middle-aged man, she turned around and glanced at him. Compared to those people from before, you don't seem so weak. The middle-aged man. The woman in a plain dress opened her palm, and the little wooden figure appeared in her hand. She looked at the middle-aged man. This is my brother. The middle-aged man glanced at the little wooden figure, and hesitated for a moment. What do you mean? Sue. The woman in a plain dress said. Perhaps he will come here one day. If he does, give me some face and don't bully him, all right? The middle-aged man looked at the woman in a plain dress. What if I don't agree? The woman opened her palm. A sword suddenly flew out. The sword shot into the depths of the starry sky and arrived at the Beastman world. In an instant, the entire starry sky turned illusory. The middle-aged man's expression changed drastically when he saw this scene. This woman wants to destroy the entire Beastman world. As the sword descended, the entire Beastman world started to collapse inch by inch. True collapse. Under this sword, even the origin of the entire Beastman world was dissipating. The middle-aged man hurriedly said, Senior, please have mercy. I agree. At this moment, he suddenly understood that this woman was not just a little stronger than him, but many points. He could not block that sword. The Beastman world could not block it either. The woman in a plain dress looked at the middle-aged man expressionlessly. Too late. As she spoke, her right hand pressed down lightly. The sword sank down and the sky above the Beastman world darkened. The middle-aged man said with a trembling voice, Senior, please have mercy. He had never been so humble in his life. When had the Beastman race ever suffered such humiliation? He also wanted to fight. He also wanted to be unyielding. But his strength did not allow him to. The moment this woman in a plain dress attacked, he felt despair. This woman was so powerful that he felt despair. At this moment, the woman in a plain dress stopped. After a moment of silence, she said, For my brother's sake, I will ask you again. As she spoke, she took out the little wooden figure. This is my brother. If he comes here, don't bully him, all right? The middle-aged man hurriedly said, All right. The woman in a plain dress nodded. Wouldn't everything be fine if you answered like that just now? The middle-aged man laughed bitterly. I didn't know you were so abnormal. The woman in a plain dress did not speak further. She walked towards the distance, but she stopped in next to no time. The middle-aged man's expression instantly changed when he saw this. The woman in a plain dress turned to glance at the middle-aged man. There is a familiar aura here. Do you know a little girl with a horn on her head? A little girl with a horn on her head? The middle-aged man was stunned, and then he said with a trembling voice, Senior, you know Miss Aria? The woman in a plain dress nodded. Has she been here? The middle-aged man nodded and said respectfully, Yes, she has passed by here. Senior, what is your relationship with Miss Aria? The woman in a plain dress thought for a moment and said, Enemy. Enemy. The middle-aged man's expression was slightly strange. Enemy? Senior, that Miss Aria is very strong. She said that besides her brother, no one is a match for her. The woman in a plain dress had a calm expression. Did she say that? The middle-aged man nodded. Yes. The woman in a plain dress did not speak. She turned around and continued forward. The middle-aged man hesitated for a moment and said, Senior, do you need us to take care of your brother? The woman in a plain dress did not even turn her head. Up to you. The middle-aged man nodded and felt relieved. He did not really want to get involved in these things. Especially to take care of a human. He was still slightly disgusted and resistant. At this moment, the woman in a plain dress said, You can take care of him or not. But if anything happens to him, all of you will be buried with him. The middle-aged man was petrified on the spot. F***ck me. P.S. Tickets have been scarce recently. Do you still have tickets? If you do, can you lend me some? I'm borrowing, not asking. Lend. Chapter 1453. Taoism. Second Elder Tao, who was sitting cross-legged in the wooden house, suddenly opened his eyes. At this moment, an old man suddenly appeared in front of him, and the old man said in a low voice, "Qinghe and Dinwen have all fallen." All fallen. Second Elder Tao was surprisingly calm. The old man glanced at Second Elder Tao and said, "Second Elder." Second Elder Tao slowly closed his eyes. "I understand." The old man bowed slightly and left. Second Elder Tao was silent for a long time in the wooden house, and then he stood up and left. Second Elder Tao walked towards the back of the mountain, and before long, he arrived before a mountain wall. He looked at the mountain wall in front of him and said softly, "The Taoism is in danger." After a moment of silence, the mountain wall suddenly trembled, and then it split open, and an old man in a gray robe walked out. The old man looked at Second Elder Tao. "The Taoism is in danger?" Second Elder Tao nodded. "Ask everyone who is in closed-door cultivation to come out." The old man frowned slightly. "What exactly happened?" Second Elder Tao said softly, "The 9 Tao scriptures have been gathered, and the spirit of the Grand Tao is about to appear." The old man was stunned. "Isn't that a good thing?" Second Elder Tao looked at the old man. "Those who possess the 9 Tao scriptures are the mortal enemies of the Taoism." The old man in gray was speechless. Second Elder Tao said, "Mu Xing, I want to immediately recall all the disciples in Wuyuan, and all the elders and protectors who are in closed-door cultivation to come out immediately." Mu Xing said in a low voice, "Is it that serious?" Second Elder Tao glanced at Mu Xing. "The Taoism has lost more than 20 experts so far, including Qinghe and the Dean of the One Academy." Mu Xing's expression became serious when he heard this. Second Elder Tao slowly closed his eyes. "I want to see how strong the forces behind Yi Xian are. Let's see if they can destroy the Taoism." Boundless sacred ground. The Holy Lord came to the small bamboo house once more, and he said in a low voice, "Master, all the people from the Taoism have fallen, including the Dean of the One Academy, Wen Tianyu." Within the bamboo house, the woman picked up the teacup and took a light sip, and then she said softly, "Isn't this very normal?" The Holy Lord said in a low voice, "Master, that woman in a plain dress is extremely dangerous." "Danger?" The woman smiled and said, "You underestimated her too much. She's not dangerous, she's terrifying. She's the most dangerous person in the world, and also the most terrifying person." The Holy Lord hesitated for a moment and then asked, "Master, why do you know that woman in a plain dress so well?" The woman smiled and did not answer the question. Instead, she stood up and left the bamboo house. Outside the bamboo house, the sacred leader hurriedly bowed. The woman looked at the end of the horizon and said softly, "The second Taoist probably won't give up, right?" The sacred master nodded. "I've already received news that he has begun to recall all the Tao sect's disciples who are outside." The woman asked, "Is he going to start attacking Yi Xian?" Holy Master shook his head. "From what I know, he might be trying to destroy the forces behind Yi Xian." The woman was stunned, and then she said, "Why isn't he looking for Yi Xian directly? Why is he looking for the forces behind Yi Xian?" The sacred leader hesitated for a moment and said, "Perhaps he feels that the forces behind Yi Xian are a huge threat. So, he wants to deal with the forces behind Yi Xian first." The woman suddenly asked, "Is the second Taoist an idiot?" The sacred leader was speechless. The woman shook her head. "The Tao sect's ancestor is quite a figure, so why did he take in such an idiot? I can't figure it out." The sacred leader hesitated for a moment and said, "Actually, the second Taoist is very strong. However, they're used to being superior. After all, the Tao sect was practically invincible all those years ago, and the 4 saints of the Tao sect were extremely famous. The Tao sect has never suffered such humiliation, and this is probably the first time." The woman smiled and said, "Actually, it's fine. I don't want Yi Xian to be so free and unfettered. It's not a bad thing for us to have the Tao sect cause trouble for him." The sacred leader said in a low voice, "Master, Yi Xian is auctioning the contents of the 8th scripture in Xian City." The woman glanced at the sacred leader. "You want it?" The sacred leader nodded. The woman smiled and said, "Then go and bid for it." The sacred leader wanted to say something but hesitated. The woman said softly, "You want to ask if the people behind Yi Xian are so terrifying. Why do we still want to be enemies with them, right?" The sacred leader nodded. The woman smiled and said, "This is a grudge between me and them." The sacred leader bowed slightly and didn't ask any further questions. A moment later, the sacred leader left. The woman looked up into the sky, and her smile gradually turned cold as she thought of something. Xian City. A grand auction was about to be held under the arrangements of Lan Ruo, the city lord of Xian City. There was only one thing to be auctioned in this auction: the Tao scripture. The contents of the 8th scripture. Countless forces and experts rushed to Xian City when they heard the news. At this moment, Xian City was unprecedentedly bustling. City Lord Manor, inside the hall. Lan Ruo looked at Yi Xian. "How many fortune divine crystals are you going to auction?" Yi Xian asked. "Are the fortune divine crystals the common currency now?" Lan Ruo nodded. "Yes. Of course, some precious elixirs are also counted. However, these elixirs are too rare and hard to come by." Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, "Then let's go with the fortune divine crystals." In Miss Lan Ruo's opinion, how many fortune divine crystals can the contents of the 8th scripture be sold for? Lan Ruo looked at Yi Xian. "A priceless treasure that can't be estimated." Yi Xian smiled and said, "There shouldn't be anyone coming to snatch it, right?" Lan Ruo smiled and said, "You can rest assured in Xian City unless all the experts from the Tao sects rush here." Yi Xian cupped his fists and said, "Then I'll have to trouble Miss Lan Ruo this time." Lan Ruo smiled and said, "You're welcome." At this moment, an old man walked in and bowed slightly. "City Lord, everything is ready." Lan Ruo looked at Yi Xian and smiled. "Young Master Yi, let's go." Yi Xian nodded and said, "All right." Under Lan Ruo's lead, Yi Xian arrived at the auction site. Yi Xian scanned the area and realized that there were very few people around. There were only a few dozen of them. Lan Ruo smiled and said, "We've done a screening. After all, there are only a few powerful forces." Yi Xian nodded and said, "All right." Lan Ruo pointed to the round stage in the distance and said, "Young Master Yi, are you going to do it yourself, or do you want one of us to do it?" Yi Xian smiled and said, "I'll do it." With that, he appeared on the round stage. At this moment, everyone's eyes fell on Yi Xian. Yi Xian glanced at the surroundings and noticed that the weakest amongst them was at the consolidation realm. Besides that, there were a few extremely powerful auras. He even saw 3 familiar faces: Nanyu Xiao, Nanyu Echi, and Nanyu Eching, the Nanyu clan. When he saw Yi Xian look over, Nanyu Xiao smiled as a greeting. Yi Xian cupped his fists and looked around. "Everyone, I won't waste my breath. Let's get straight to the point." As he spoke, he opened his palm and an ancient scroll appeared in his hand. The contents of the 8th Taoist scripture. The starting price. He hesitated for a moment and looked at Lan Ruo. Lan Ruo smiled and raised a finger. Yi Xian immediately said, "The starting price is 10 million fortune crystals." Lan Ruo was stunned when he heard this, and everyone else was stunned as well. 10 million fortune crystals? The silence was terrifying. The atmosphere was very strange. Yi Xian gazed at Lan Ruo. Lan Ruo hesitated for a moment, and then he said via voice transmission, "I mean 1 billion, 1 billion. Yi Xian's face froze. He realized that he seemed to have underestimated this scripture. Lan Ruo continued, "This scripture is a precious treasure of the Taoist path, and it's even the 8th volume. Its value can't be measured with money. Actually, a bit of 1 billion is too little." Yi Xian was a little embarrassed. He was a little embarrassed. Lan Ruo rolled his eyes at Yi Xian, and then he shouted, 100 million! 100 million! The atmosphere instantly returned to normal when Lan Ruo from Xuanqing made a bid. At this moment, an old man said in a hoarse voice, 200 million, 300 million, 500 million. The price rose higher and higher. Yi Xian was quite excited. Just as Lan Ruo had said, he had underestimated this scripture. The price rose higher and higher, and it didn't take long for it to reach 1,100,000,000. 1,100,000,000 fortune crystals. Yi Xian fell silent. 1 billion fortune divine crystals. How many experts would he be able to nurture if he brought them to the 5th dimension? I'm still too poor. He'd already made up his mind. He would auction off the 9th volume once he finished studying it. Right at this moment, a voice suddenly resounded. 3 billion, 3 billion. As soon as this was said, the surroundings fell silent once more. Yi Xian looked at the person who'd spoken. It was an old man in a black robe, and his face couldn't be seen. Lan Rua glanced at the old man as well. And then she sent a voice transmission to Yi Xian. The ancient race. He's extremely strong. Yi Xian nodded, and then he glanced at the surroundings and said, "Is there anyone else who has a higher bid than this senior?" The surroundings fell silent. Yi Xian was about to speak when a voice suddenly resounded. "Young Master Yi, my Southua race doesn't have that many fortune crystals, but we can use medicinal pills to exchange for them." As he spoke, he waved his right hand, and a few hundred bottles of medicinal pills appeared in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian glanced at the medicinal pills, and then he turned to look at Lan Rua. Lan Rua glanced at the medicinal pills and said, "They're worth over 3 billion fortune crystals. These medicinal pills are sufficient to allow a huge batch of Dao Formation Realm experts to appear in the 5th dimension." A huge batch of Dao Formation Realm experts. Yi Xian was slightly tempted. Meanwhile, the old man from the ancient race suddenly said, "It's medicinal pills. My ancient race has them as well." As soon as he finished speaking, he opened his palm, and a few hundred bottles of medicinal pills appeared in front of Yi Xian. The old man looked at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, what do you think about 3 billion and these medicinal pills?" Yi Xian turned to look at Nanyue Xiao, but the latter remained silent. The value of the Dao scriptures far exceeded these medicinal pills, but if the Southua race continued to buy them, then it would truly be a huge blow. When Nanyue Xiao remained silent, Yi Xian looked at the old man and smiled. "Deal." As soon as he finished speaking, he flicked his finger, and the scroll landed in front of the old man. The old man was very straightforward, and he flicked his finger, and a spatial ring landed in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian glanced at it, and there were exactly 3 billion medicinal pills within it. The old man was about to leave when Yi Xian suddenly said, "I wonder if there are any from the Taoist faction." The Taoist faction. Everyone looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled. "There aren't any?" Meanwhile, an old man suddenly appeared not too far away from Yi Xian, and he gazed at Yi Xian. What? It was obvious that he was from the Taoist faction. Yi Xian glanced at everyone here, and then he pointed at the old man. "I'll give the 8th scripture to anyone who kills him for free." The surroundings fell silent. The old man sneered. "Who dares?" Right at this moment, a cold light flashed through the surroundings. The old man's expression changed drastically, and he turned around abruptly. In the next moment, the cold light had already pierced through his forehead. His soul was annihilated. At the same time, a shadow appeared not too far away from Yi Xian. The shadow was hazy and couldn't be seen clearly. In the field, everyone looked at the shadow. What guts! The shadow extended his right hand to Yi Xian. Yi Xian flicked his finger, and an ancient scroll appeared in front of the shadow. The shadow glanced at the scroll, then turned around and left. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly said, "Do you have any thoughts on the 9th scripture?" The shadow stopped. A moment later he said, "Who should I kill?" Yi Xian smiled and said, 10 Dao Sect Consolidation Realm Powerhouses." The shadow fell silent. Yi Xian looked around and smiled. "I'll give the 8th scripture to anyone who kills a Dao Consolidation Realm Cultivator. I'll give the 9th scripture to anyone who kills 10. If there are more than 20, I'll take them to the 9th dimension to play." Everyone, you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.